aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault, and you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the recovery addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
Got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
Figure out where the audio was coming from. I switched things around here on my desk and all the numbers are different now. So welcome back from lunch. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am Recovery Addict. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Big thank you goes out to TW. Yo, TW. You won't be able to watch actually this afternoon's proceedings with as much dedication as you might otherwise, because being first in chat made you the rightful heir of everything IP related. So the internet is now yours for the rest of the day. Congratulations on winning that, TW. So you'll have to focus on that, and then in your spare time, you can follow up with what we're doing here on the live stream and everything. So thank you for taking on that responsibility. Creative B says, so glad I wasn't first. Winning the internet would be stressful. Kevin's here. Golden Mom, DMB second us. Kathy as well. DMB, I started right on time just for you at 2:22. Your request. Don't say I never did anything for you. So, Christine Hathaway is here as well. TW, not sure will be known. Let's see. O-Town Chill is back again. Laura, Shells, Norma, TW again. Denise, Canes fan. Stole my thunder with quick fingers. Maybe another day for you. One day, Canes, you'll get it. I give out lots of chances. Regifting is what I'm good at. You know, you should see me at Christmas time. You know. Anything you gave me, I might give you back. Horse Sheet and Bananas is here. Good afternoon, everyone. What do you have for lunch today? Egg salad and SMB pickles for you. I had some SMB pickles. I also had a slice of Mrs. R.A.'s homemade wheat bread with peanut butter and a few leftovers. Had some blackened tilapia as well. So it was just like it was a mix of everything. I did not go for the salad today. So my diet can wait for another day. Let's see. Mac is here, back from town, beard up for 3 days. Samsung's here. Arby's 2 for 7 fish with a side of regret. Lasagna for Denise. Let's see. Hello, CJ. Where's CJ? Did I miss CJ somewhere? Let's see. Oh, TW. If you win the internet, we're in good hands, right? We should be. Let's see. Who else is here? Sharon McDonald's in the house. Mac, we got you. Picky is here. Ed. Hello, Ed. I'm still clinging to the killer clown theory, says Samsung. That's we might have to go into that a little bit. I don't know who got the likes going, but they're flying already for starting the show. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. TW Lindsay, check out Emily D. Baker at the end of her stream. She gives a summary and takes questions to her. She's a lot of fun. She has some cursey words, just know, but she's a lot of fun. I like watching her as well. Matthew Harris is here. If I ever become a judge, I'm going to require my bailiff to say, all rise, all rise, all rise. But like Matthew McConaughey says, all right, all right, all right, and dazed and confused. That will be awesome. I think the bailiff would enjoy complying with that requirement, Matthew. And I can't wait for the day you are a judge. I can just see it. It's in your future. It's coming. Lindsay Hendricks getting some good rain here in Texas. That's awesome. Keep it, though. It's nice weather here in North Carolina right now. Southern Girl is here. And G, welcome back, everyone. I have my snacks for the afternoon fireworks. I'm not sure how much we're going to get today, Ann. This witness that took most of the morning only took probably about, I'd say, half the time during the 404B hearing. So we're taking like twice as much time with each witness. So I'm not sure if we're going to get to the good ones. Tinsley is the one we really want to hear. We also want to hear the son, the caretaker's son, or the housekeeper's son. Maybe that'll come today. 65 and sunny on the mountain today in western North Carolina. I need to work, but nah. Good job, Mac. Putting your priorities straight there. Share Bear, hope you enjoyed lunch as well. Lindsay Hendricks, also be sure to check out Cup of Justice podcast with the MMP ladies and attorney Eric Bland, Satterfield attorney. Yes, he's on the list. He's on the list of attorneys to testify possibly, or people to testify in this trial. He's one of the 255 that we're looking forward to. Okay, we have audio coming from the courtroom. Well, actually nothing yet from the courtroom, but it's set up to come from the courtroom as soon as it starts, which should be at about 15 minutes. We started a little bit early. Internet Solutions Online seminar just ended, so ready to go. Wonderful, TW. We're in good hands for sure. Loomis, are you people early for everything? We have some people that are early a lot of times, and some people that are very seldom early. So it's sort of like it balances out. Everything except work. Norma, let's see. Who did you say? DB. Let's see. Rich says was lurking briefly over at the lawyer Tragos, regarding Brooks' next spectacle representing himself. Yes, and he wants to represent himself. It's going to be awful because he's going to bring up all the same objections. He has not changed one iota from when he was in front of Judge Doro. Ding, ding, ding. It's time, Picky. I was on time. I was here. CJ, there you are. I see you. Adam says, did I miss anything good yesterday and this morning? Adam, you did miss a little bit. Some important stuff with Jenny, basically the CFO of the law firm, recounting how the law firm discovered that Alex was stealing from them. Where the money was going and everything. Just that was a good basis to have just an understanding of not only how much he stole and from who he stole from. Because it wasn't just the law firm. He stole most of his money from the clients who were supposed to get that in settlement form. A lot of times the clients didn't even know they'd won, didn't even know there was money out there. Sometimes there would be like a split settlement or a two-part settlement, and he'd tell them about the first one, rob them a little bit on that, and then not even tell them about the second and take the whole thing. So, really bad. Horse Sheet and Bananas is here, taking your seat. Thank you. Laura, Sharon McDonald, Miss Chris, Psychic. Samsung is standing. We'll have to make that. We'll have to make a command for standing, Samsung. What should it say there? Give me some ideas. Ignore Me is here, doing the disco, apparently. Trying not to be ignored, I guess. Miss Chris is dancing. Let's see. Lindsay, CG in Texas. Lil Miss. Born a Hawkeye, Douglas. Myra is here. High Speed Drifter. Mutt from Virginia. Let's see. Donna Thompson. I see you there, Donna. Linda Hill as well. Matthew Harris says, if I become a judge, all my trials will be aired on YouTube, and my order permitting TV will require be aired without copyright. Boom. I love it. That's what this judge did. This one orders that it be aired without copyright. It didn't stop the fact that yesterday I got not a copyright strike, but I got a copyright notice, a claim, and from the UK, from a news channel in the UK, claims that I stole their video, and all they're saying is they want the money, the advertising revenue from that. So what I did was I just clipped that part out of the video, and it was from weeks ago. Odds are none of you will ever watch it and know what's missing. But I say, I'll, instead of giving them the satisfaction of taking the ad revenue on that video, I'm just going to cut it out because they're lying and it's not worth me fighting it. Love this group with all my whole Texas heart, says Lindy Hendricks. Lindsay, you're amazing. It is fun to have you here in chat. Congratulations on a month, and thank you at the same time. I appreciate your support. It would not be the same here without you, Lindsay. You're one of the wonderful ones that just make it so much fun to be here. Adam's here. Did I miss anything big this morning? Just what I was talking about with the witness from the law firm. NC Southern Girl, do we all have to open wide? What's happening? Is somebody getting some dental work done? I took y'all with me to the dentist chair. That's what's happening. We're at the dentist, guys. Fun. Everybody, hope you brushed your teeth, flossed between, did all the things. Let's see. Hooray for part 2, says Kickstar. Denisa. Is it Denisa? Denisa. Casey Jones is here. Sunny Florida Mom. Nancy. Tabitha. Roxy. Keenal Minsky, Jenny Says, Portland Trailblazers TV, Lil Miss, Bite Me, Lynn Hoke, Sharon McDonald, Little Miss again. The Jams here, KH in South Carolina. Jenny Says, I think we've got most of the people here. Just checking off the last few on the roll. Jojo Peter, Susan Bond, Lindsay Hendricks, got you already. Chandra, good to have you, Chandra. Born a Hawkeye. Jenny, yummy. I do like egg salad. It's delicious. Leftovers rule, especially if they were good the first time. If they weren't good the first time, I would not recommend the leftovers the second time. But if it was pizza or something like that, it's always good leftover. Kayla Williams is here. Dilly Pickles listening on the road. Phone's going nuts here. It sounds like a PMP has given back about $5 million to people he stole from. Is that crazy? Lindsay Hendricks, Chick-fil-A over here. That's a good lunch. I do like Chick-fil-A. Mac and cheese, driving but listening, says Chandra. Casey Jones, chicken and tater tots. Sorry. Dude, give me some of your tots. Or Napoleon, give me some of your tots. There are no pickles here near me. Sorry, I can't pay the $16 to have a jar shipped in. High Speed Drifter, I'm sorry. I am looking for alternative brands that have the same recipe, and so far I have found another, but it's only at Food Lion, which is also a local store. You have better odds of having a Walmart near you than a Food Lion. But Little Miss says, Recovery Addict, does she know she's cooking for about 360 now? Somebody's making some dinner, and it's my wife, and apparently for everybody. So I had homemade vegetable beef soup. Howdy from True Celtic Mutt and the Gavel Hounds. Good to have you guys with us. Did I miss anything big this morning? No, not anymore. I think we covered it. CJ, got you here. I think we've got, I'm just watching the wall to make sure that the court's not starting yet. Jill Hipple, Tracy Anzar, CJ, Samsung, Maggie Carr, Kayla Williams, Jay Hughes, Terry. Man, someone's going in and out of my back door. I don't know who it is. I think that's the kids. It's good weather out there, and they just had like their recess time. 62 degrees, 62 and sunny in eastern North Carolina.
Donna Thompson just sent a super sticker with 1.99.
Donna, thank you for the super sticker, and it looks like a fox with hearts. I love it, Donna. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate that. Mars House is here. Mods in chat and scoots over to Naughty Corner. It's going to be one of those days. Jiggly Jules is here as well. Oh, ear infection and don't feel like eating. Oh, man. Well, put us in your good ear, and we'll be in that ear. How about that? I'm just listening on one side. Tag is here. Afternoon peeps. I think Jojo Peter, we got you. High Speed Drifter. I think we got most people. If I missed you, I do apologize, Christy. You got me eating pickles. I had both the spicy maple bourbon pickles as well as some dills. We have like not the little tiny dills, but like the medium sized. I think they're the best size of pickle because it's sizable enough that you could, it's you're not eating like a little dainty snack, but at the same time, it's not that giant pickle that's so tough on the outside that you need a knife to cut it before you can bite into it. Are they going to start off with the same witness? No, I think she's done. We've got a new one here. And it's probably going to be still bank related, financial related. I think we're going to be in the 404B stuff for a little while. Should I shave my head, says High Speed Drifter. It might make you faster in the car if you're drifting around corners. I don't know. I will leave that up to you. I will tell you that I probably don't look good bald. That's just my take, and I'm just basing that on when I was younger on the swim team, and I was using those little swim caps you pull over your head that pulls everything down. It makes you look like it's almost like you're bald. I just thought, that look doesn't go well on me. But Picky's here. Thank you, Roku, working for a recovery addict now. You can see his big devastated face now. With every dad joke that comes in, you can see just the shame of it on my face. Okay, I think we're about caught up. I do apologize if I missed anybody. It was pretty good pronunciation. I don't remember how I said it. Danza? Danisa? Danisa. There we go. Danisa. I'm not going to remember that. I promise you I'm going to get it wrong again. I promise that's what I do. Okay, let's see where we're at. Hi, we're back for the afternoon session. Thank you, the Brown Barn. Thanks for being here. We are getting ready to get started. Oh,
Jan Wood just sent a super sticker with 1.49.
that looks awesome. Is it a peach? I think it's a peach. Thank you, Jan, for the super sticker. I love it. I appreciate that. Does anyone know when Maggie and Paul got buried or cremated after their death? Sharon, I don't know how soon that happened. It's going to have to be after the investigation because the state wouldn't have released the bodies in the investigation until after that. So it probably wasn't in the normal timeline. It probably took additional time for that. I didn't look great in the tinfoil hat either. Thanks, Adam. And you screenshotted it and posted it just about everywhere. But yes, that's basically the look, only less shiny. Only slightly less shiny. Rainbow Lights here. Heather Barnett, Cass, praying for healing. Yeah, all the guys who were in Turkey. Oh my goodness. Tish, hi, it's just me lurking because work. Just kidding, I love my job. Tish, you do great. Thanks for being here. All right, let's see what we have from the courtroom really quickly, and it looks like it's just that. We'll take it. I think the judge will be back here in about 2 or 3 minutes. I just want to catch it just in case the bailiff yells at us. He has yelled at us probably 3 or 4 times so far in this trial. Mostly just the gallery, but by extension, he yells at us because the mic's turned on when he yells at the gallery. And he pretty much tells everyone to shut up and sit down, which is sort of funny. I'm here, but I'm going back and forth because of the XXX trial that started today. Yeah, we're not following that one right now. There's just too many things going on. I'm actually sort of glad that the Aiden Fucci pled guilty, because that was also one that was unfortunately that I was interested in to see how that was going to happen. I'm glad he pled guilty. I think that's the right move. But okay. Let's see, another picture for Discord. Thank you. Look what the tinfoil hat did to me. Not much emotion throughout this trial from Buster. He's been pretty level throughout all of it. Today was the first time I saw him basically looking at the ground during sort of the trial. He was sort of hunched over during some of the testimony of what Alex had stolen. I wonder if we'll get a similar response once we have the son of the housekeeper up, because I think there's a connection there that I'm sure they knew each other, at least to some degree, and there's going to be some shame there, I think, just by extension. Okay, I think I'm all caught up. Love the tinfoil hats, says Katrina. What's the story behind the tinfoil hat? Grumpy, we did a live stream of the balloon right as it was getting shot down on I think it was on Saturday, and someone was saying they need an emoji for a tinfoil hat, and it works because a lot of times I want emojis that work not just for the moment, like just for the trial we're dealing with on that time, but for all the trials. And a lot of times we talk about these far-fetched ideas that really could never happen. You're like, what if this is what occurred? It's just a way we can throw that emoji next to what you're talking about, just to say, hey, here's a wild conspiracy idea type thing. So we like that. If you have other ideas for emojis, I have several more slots open for me, and I make them myself. I design them and upload them. So if you have a photograph that you can let me base it off of, or something like that, and you have a good one that's selected, I'm sort of picky. I don't do everything that's requested, but I will try to make some more emojis, all for y'all. They've been buried they got buried 4 days after they got killed? That's super fast. The autopsy was done that quickly? Lindsay says, still currently driving to Shiner using speech to text, so nobody worried. But I'm curious what everybody's him go to Seninka's for a long drive. I just picked up some sweet tart ropes. I'm not sure if Lindsay even knows that her speech to text is turned on right now. I didn't follow quite exactly what everyone's go to Seninka's for a long. Is it a treat? I think you're talking about snacks. I think she tried to say snacks and it came out as Seneca's. So what's everyone's go-to snacks for a long drive? She picked up some Sweet Tart ropes. For me, I used to be on long drives. It used to have to be Mountain Dew. Otherwise, it was a short drive and a long sleep. But I haven't gone on many long drives. I usually don't drive more than about 2 or 3 hours in a stint now. I just haven't had the need to go very far. The witness this morning was mostly a repeat of when she first testified without the jury. Was there anything additional? Carol, the only part I heard additional was just a little bit more detail about how the office operated, how the events of the discovery of Alex's fraud, of his theft, his embezzlement, whatever you want to call it, how that came to light and how it was handled. And we heard more detail on each charge. It was the same thing, but a little bit more. It was just a little plus added on. And that's probably going to be similar for all these 404B witnesses that we've heard from once already. I hope they bring Tinky Tinsley back for some fireworks. What did I call him? I called him Tingley or something. Tinsley is another attorney, and he was probably the most comfortable witness on the stand, even referring to the questioning attorney by their first name or their title as he's responding. He was just easygoing. Let's see, emojis. Somebody just sent me something on the burner phone. For those that don't know, I do have a burner phone, and it's a great way for you to reach me. Oh, it's calling me abstract. Let's see. I'll have to think about this, calling me abstract. The emojis, they're 48 pixels by 48 pixels, which means I can't have very much detail in them at all. Even the hat seems a little bit too much detail. But we'll watch for some of these images you're sending over, see if any of those work. Anyway, I do have a burner phone. If at any time you need to call it, you can just do what Abby and Katrina did here and type !burner in the chat. It will then post the number up on the screen. The burner phone number may change periodically because it is a burner phone. And if somebody's on to me, I'm going to ditch it and get a new one. And so that works. 48 pixels by 48 pixels. Yes, pixels, not pickles. Which means it's basically just a not very high resolution image. Put an article about the funeral on your Discord. Okay, I'll check Discord. That's it's actually, I have to admit, it's not my Discord, although I love it and I do frequent it. This belongs to Toxic and Lil Miss and Amber and a couple other great people over there who've just done a phenomenal job, better than I ever could, and they've invited us over there. So that's the link. If you do type !Discord in chat as well, you'll be able to get the Discord link at any time. Okay, I think we got about 30 seconds, and the judge will be late after that. The scale of justice, or Lady Justice for emoji, not really exciting, but always relevant. Okay, I like that one. Our burner phone does not exist. It's a Google or something. It is. It's a virtual burner phone, which makes it even easier for me to throw away and get a new number. I do know they had a service before they had an actual funeral, a burial due to the investigation. So
There's a lawsuit.
Lindsay, I think you're right. I think probably 4 days after is when they had the funeral. I don't know if their bodies were buried then. I'd have to look at that again. I have mad respect for all of you who can figure out Discord. I must be too old because I can't. Well, Jenny says, I'm sorry. It was rough for me as well. I started using Discord, oh man, probably back while I was playing World of Warcraft years and years ago. And it was confusing then as it is now. We used it for voice chat, I think, back then. Actually, $5 million may not have been a lot for these law partners to pay back. I've heard some YouTube experts indicate the firm was insurance settlements, churn, factoring near six-figure sums almost daily. That's one thing that we heard from this witness, this lady, the first time around that we didn't hear this time, is that the amount that Alex stole was sort of like a drop in the bucket compared to the overall picture, which probably helped in it not being detected. Ivan's back, late from taking Rebel on a walk, just in time. Yep, just don't feed him too many snacks, Ivan. You'll be good. Okay. I have some of the commands turned off, sorry. we need a Tickle Me Elmo. Is that a suggestion? Judge is looking for his gavel. What did you run? I'd love to do PvP with my Rhett Pally. I was, oh man, I kind of don't even remember I was a human. I'll put it that way. I think I was a human. I ran some Night Elves as well, but talking about World of Warcraft, it's a massive multiplayer online role-playing game, and I played it a lot. I was Jewel Crafter is what I was, and I ended right before, at the peak of my career, where I was making ridiculous amounts of money. I was pretty much the only Jewel Crafter who could do all the good recipes on the world that I played on, and I was making a lot of in-game money that way. I got invited to no less than 1,000 crypto discords and denied them all. And only Recovery Addict lured me into his, says Ivan. Oh, that's funny. There are tons of investment crypto discords. We do have a Walmart sound already that we got from
In front of the Walmart.
We got this from pretty much most of. This was the guy that peed out in front of the Walmart, right?
I was kicked back, taking it easy.
And the magistrate was talking to him and giving him advice and saying you need to fight it. He said,
You especially want to go to court if it's bullshit charges because you get them thrown out.
and he's like, oh, you can't win on these ones.
By gosh, go down and fight them. Yeah, you can. By gosh, make them work for it.
Got some good sound effects out of that. That's from the Knox stream arraignment hearings. Let's see. Karen Falls here. You guys are all here. That's funny. We're good. Alex stole it. That we did miss a lot of Alex stole it. If you missed this morning, you missed why Alex stole it is so funny and why it's trending on Twitter and everything else. Do you think the jury is struggling with following the case? Yes, Seven, I do. You almost forget it's a murder trial. I think this is the worst possible scenario for the jury, where you have a state that does not allow you to take notes, or the judge doesn't allow them to take notes, and now you've got just a mess of details and numbers and dates and names. Oh my goodness. I need a legend to keep up on the names and who's who. And they're sitting there with nothing, just trying to remember what's happening. It's awful. Andrea DCS, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you so much. I didn't see a message with it. If you need me to answer a question, I definitely can, but you also do not need to do a super chat to ask me a question. It helps if you do flag me, though. I'll try to get to see everything that's flagged. We need a Grady Judd sound, too. Oh, man. If you have a good suggestion on Sheriff Grady, let me know. I want to have a good, clean soundbite that's not covered with any laughter or anything else. So it's anytime we play it, it just makes sense. Let's see. Is it just me, or do the Murdaugh brothers all look like they have different bio dads? I'm not being mean. I don't see any familial similarities. I saw some. I can see some similarities between the brother that was in court next to Buster and Alex. I can see a little bit. I think there's probably a good age difference. I wonder how far apart they are. Christy says, even I have been taking notes. For the Alliance, says Andrea. That's hilarious. For the Alliance. I was on the Alliance. I was not on the Horde side in World of Warcraft. The state of South Carolina does not permit notes, or is it just this judge in case? I think every judge can sort of make rules, but I think in South Carolina, that's the standard, that they don't allow notes. I think Kansas is also that way. There are several states that are like that. There are quite a few, actually. Maggie and Paul were cremated. Okay. Just being honest, but it'd take a lot as a juror to not dive into this family in their off time. Oh my goodness. They're seeing it on the news everywhere, and they can't look at any news. They can't watch anything on the internet. Hey, Judge, you're back. Okay. Let's see.
Please be seated.
Let's see where we start up with on the next one. Looks pretty crowded from this standpoint. Judge has his Snickers, got his drink. Oh, no drink. He's got his pen. Letting everybody get their wiggles out.
You mentioned this morning how bad the rough draft was. How bad the rough draft was that you received?
That we paid $450 for? Yes, sir.
They paid $450 for
I
the rough
want the
draft.
record to be clear that those rough drafts are not provided by the South Carolina court reporters, South Carolina judicial reporters.
I want to make it clear that if I said that, I never implied that our South Carolina court reporters would produce such a deficit product.
Yes.
It was made clear to me by court administration that it's, what's the name of the company? FDR? FTR.
Well,
FTR, a private
company. I don't know the name either. So.
Apparently has not perfected its software, because we paid $450 for something that was, as you saw, not of much use. So I want to make the record clear. Not our South Carolina reporters, some northern company.
Northern Company.
Certainly, Ms. Harris and I have been working together for probably a decade, and I've worked with Mike as well, and they're excellent court reporters. Okay, ready for the jury? Okay, okay, you bring them in.
One of the things that I discussed with the defense, and we had mentioned to Your Honor before, is, there's some issues that surround the side of the road, and we're not, plowing that ground currently, with the understanding with the defense that if that becomes an issue as the trial goes forward, that there won't be any objection to recalling a witness for that limited purpose. And I just wanted to put that on the record before we go forward.
100% in agreement, Your Honor.
Very good.
So recalling who?
Thank you. You bring the jury.
They wouldn't object to recalling a witness. What for? What? Because none of these witnesses that they've excused have been told they're subject to recall. Okay, so Amber, basically the defense paid for a quickly typed transcript of the testimony from the caretaker, the Alex Murdaugh's mom's caretaker, her testimony. They paid $450 for it, and apparently it was garbage. It was garbage, and they tried to use it, and this morning they basically said, we got it last night, we paid for it, and it's awful type thing. And the judge came out now and just said, hey, just so you know, that's not my court reporters that do this. That's this other company, this third-party company that provides this service. Because the court itself does provide an actual transcript, a certified transcript. It just takes time to get it right. And this other company has quick turnaround, but very low quality. And so that was what the back and forth was there. The defense guy talking, that is Dick Harpootlian. He's there on the right side of the screen, standing up right now, just walking off. He says it's Dirty Yankee Corporation, a northern company. And it's sad because that company has a representative there in the courtroom, but she just manages the microphones.
Hey, thank you.
She's not the one that does the software and things. Just a low-fruit Yankee joke. The whole Murdaugh family found that so funny. Yeah. I resemble that remark.
You may call your next witness.
May it please court, Your Honor, the state calls Ronnie Crosby.
I heard Ronnie what? They got an name for your product. Yeah, basically they had asked the judge to review it himself and see it. And regarding the blue, they said review this based on our objection, and she never testified to this, and so he was reviewing. He's like, this is crap, and he saw it as well.
State your name again for the record.
They should have a refund for sure. Yeah, I've got the whole thing word for word. I missed your super chat. Where did it go? High Speed Drifter. Thank you very much for
Crosby, Crosby.
Okay, this is the third party conversation.
Okay.
This is, first of all, high-speed drifter. Thank you very much.
Tell the jury what your profession is, please.
I'm an attorney.
He's
And where
with,
do you,
he's
what,
with
do you
the
work for a
firm.
particular firm?
I do. I work for currently for Parker Law Group.
All right. And before it was Parker Law Group, did that firm have a different name?
It did. It was Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Ellsroth, and Dietrich.
Which is a mouthful.
Referred to as PMPED in here earlier today. So,
Do you know the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
I do.
You see him here in the courtroom?
I do.
Can you point him out to the jury?
He is seated at defense table between Mr. Harpootlian and
He's
Mr.
not
Griffin.
blinking.
I believe he has a blue blazer on.
Your Honor, can the record reflect he's identified the defendant?
It does.
I think there are daggers there.
Did Alex Murdaugh, was he a partner in the law firm that you were part of?
He was.
And as a result of Mr. Murdaugh's actions, is that law firm kind of changed its name now to Parker? Or is that one of the reasons? Or how would you explain that?
Well, yes, as a result of the actions that you heard about earlier today, we did change not only the name of the law firm, but to a separate legal entity.
How long have you been with, and let's just go back and call it PMPED
liability
before all
reasons.
this happened. How long had you been with PMPED?
I started in the summer of '94, so almost 30 years now.
Okay. And when did you first get to know the defendant?
Sometime in the late '90s. I probably met him before then when I was working as a clerk for a judge, Judge Smoke, whose picture's here in the courtroom. And probably met him in court, but met him, really think I started getting to know him at the time of his grandfather, his grandfather's death,
Okay.
which would have been in the late '90s.
And what was his grandfather's name?
Randolph Murdaugh Jr. or the second, and he went by the nickname of Buster.
Was Buster in the law firm as well?
He was
Different
there
Buster.
when I started. He would come into the office. Yeah, he was there. I don't think he was a principal or any kind of equity partner, but he was there. Yes.
Chandra, thank you for becoming a member.
Over the years,
Again,
did the defendant
this is month
did you become
2.
a partner in the firm?
I did.
And what year roughly do you recall becoming a partner in the firm? Roughly.
I would say somewhere around '99 to 2000.
And did the defendant become a partner in the firm as well?
Yes, he came to work sometime in the late '90s, early 2000, and then would have become a partner probably somewhere around 2004, 2005.
He's been your law partner up until 2021 from that time?
That's correct.
Just real quick before we move on, under the agreement that the partners had, what is the rule as it relates to fees that a partner earns during the course of the year?
All fees belong to the law firm.
And just very quickly, explain to the jury very quickly just the compensation. Is most of the compensation for a partner received during the year or in one lump sum at the end of the year?
Well, as Ms. Seckinger laid out earlier, we receive a salary, and then at the end of the year, we divide net profits, which would generally be a larger portion of your income, although not always. Sometimes, depending on how someone's year went, you may not get much of anything as a bonus at the end of the year if your work did not generate sufficient fees to overcome the amount of overhead expenses that was assigned to the individual attorney.
Generally, though, most of the compensation is in that end of the year bonus?
That's fair to say.
Was that the case to your understanding for Alec?
Well, not just Alec, but it was for all of us.
So your observation over the years, did Alec have a relatively lucrative practice?
Yes, he did. He had up and down years like all people who do plaintiff's work, but yeah, he was had a lot of good clientele.
Some years he would get bonuses of 6 and 7 figures, to your recollection?
Yes, he could.
If a lawyer were to do legal work while a partner in the firm and have those fees, if he was sharing a case with another lawyer, and had the lawyer issue those fees directly to that lawyer instead of the firm, what would that be?
Mr. Waters, I was fooling with this microphone, and I may have missed a nuance in your question. Could you ask that again? I apologize. I'm trying to quit leaning, but apparently I can't stretch it out any further.
Is it common in plaintiffs' cases for lawyers, let's say, within the firm, or lawyers within the firm and lawyers outside of the firm to share cases?
Yes, I'd do that probably 70% of my practices with other law firms.
And in that instance, do you have to split the fee in the event there's a recovery by settlement or trial?
Yes, if there's a recovery up front before when the case begins, the work begins, there's an agreement on how a fee is going to be split with the other law firm. Sometimes there may be multiple law firms in a given case.
And are there instances then when the other law firm is responsible for dispersing the money, including dispersing the fees to PMPED?
Yes, that happens quite often.
And if a lawyer in PMPED were to have those fees made out to him or her instead of the firm, what would that be?
Well, it would be against our policy, but it would be stealing the fees from the firm if they did not come to the firm because they belong to the law firm.
I don't think that's the purpose of his testimony up here. I think we're going to hear about
the defendant himself.
This meeting that he overheard.
What's your observation of the defendant's cell phone usage?
Oh, he was somebody who used his cell phone a lot. I mean, much more than I do. He was always on his cell phone.
And describe a little bit about your observations of him as a lawyer. What were his skills as a lawyer? What was he good at?
Elliot was a very good lawyer. He was good with people, very good at reading people, very good at understanding people, and very good at making people believe that he cared about them and building a rapport and trust with them. And he was very good with strategizing against insurance companies and opposing lawyers that ultimately got oftentimes results that the lawyers in the firm would be really amazed at what a good job he was able to do.
Was he good at understanding the emotional value of a case and being able to leverage that?
Yes, I mean, that goes hand in hand with what I just said. It's very much a strength that he had.
Was he a good technical lawyer? Did he have a lot of academic and technical skills as a lawyer?
Well, I'm not going to judge his intelligence because I think he's very intelligent. As far as being a real student of the law, probably wasn't, and never developed a technical expertise like some lawyers will. Some lawyers specialize in one thing, like medical malpractice, and that's all they do, but he didn't. He was more of a general practitioner.
Around the time of the recession, back 2008, 2009, 2010, did you ever have any conversations with the defendant and gain a general understanding of his financial condition at that time?
I did.
And tell the jury what that was, please.
Well, for a number of years, Barrett and one of his non-lawyer business Alec and one of his non-lawyer business partners, a guy named Barrett Boulware, they did a lot of real estate transactions, just buying land and speculating on it. And I think leading up to that, they had purchased some property that speculating that they could sell it, maybe some developmental property. And of course, we all know what happened in 2008, 2009. That market went bad, and I think
the green swamp.
Both Barrett as well as maybe some of the other partners did not have the financial ability to deal with those loans that they had financed it, and so I think Alec was having to carry a lot of that, and it put a strain on him financially.
At some point after that, to your discussions with him and to your knowledge of the cases in the firm, did he have some big cases that you thought had rectified that strain, that financial strain?
Yes, there was a string of rather large cases. Some of them I actually worked on with him that resulted in very large settlements. That would have been my understanding, would have certainly been sufficient to rectify that, as well as, I believe, ultimately, some of that property that was causing a strain was they were able to sell it. So, long answer, yeah, yes.
And what were some of those cases that you thought at least had rectified any financial issues that he had?
A case referred to as Plyler, and these are internally the way we refer to them. Pinckney, which also had a companion case, Thomas. I think the Plyler case was actually 4 cases, but we referred to it as one. And then he had a case called Badger, and those cases would have been large cases.
And that's from your understanding that the legitimate legal fees from those cases were very, very large?
Yes, the law firm earned, and subsequently Mr. Murdaugh would have earned good income off those cases.
Are you generally familiar with what's called the boat case?
Yes.
And is that the February 2019 boat wreck in which Miss Mallory Beach was killed?
Yes, Ms. Beach actually worked for my wife.
Somebody you knew?
Yeah, I knew her as well as the other girls, and knew Paul.
As a result of that boat case, was it your understanding that the defendant had been civilly sued as a result of that?
Yes, there was a lawsuit brought against Alec and others.
Moving on from the boat case, did you ever have any conversation with, after the boat case, did you have any conversation with Alec about structuring his fees in a particular case?
There's a lawsuit.
You know, that conversation had come up around the office with not only him but other lawyers over the years. To my knowledge, I was the only lawyer to ever do that. But he did sometime in the spring of 2021, he had a conversation with me about that.
Okay. And what was the conversation you had with him?
I think it was just generally asking me, you know, how it was, you know, done, whether I thought it was a good idea, what the process was, that type of thing. And I don't recall the very specifics, but I do recall telling him that given the low interest rates, that it wouldn't be very fruitful. If you had high interest rates and you can buy into a lock in on an annuity, it would make sense. But, you know, there were pretty much zero interest rates during that time.
When you made that point, did he have any response to that?
Other than he was thinking about doing that.
Now, you mentioned that you're actually the only one in the firm that you recall doing structuring some fees. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think that that's a fact, not just that I recall.
Right. And though you actually set up a real structure, correct?
Well, yeah, I did.
All right. You didn't just divert the fees into another account and spend them.
You didn't just steal it, did you?
No, and to clarify, and I think Ms. Seckinger touched on it, was the traditional way of doing it to avoid taxes until you're older is you never take what's called constructive possession of the money. So whoever, if it's an insurance company or whoever's paying the money, would pay to the annuity company, and they would buy an annuity, and you would have a contract, and then whatever the terms is when you would start receiving that money, and then you start paying taxes on it. You can take a structure without. There's since then become other ones, but they don't have the tax advantages. They don't really make much sense.
This is a business partner.
Where
we were expecting other testimony from him.
You're basically just buying an annuity.
About an overheard conversation. I'm not sure if we're going to hear that or not.
Before I move on, do you know a person by the name of Gloria Satterfield? Or do you know of a person by the name of Gloria Satterfield?
No, I knew Gloria. I knew her for a lot of years.
And did she have any employment relationship with the defendant, to your knowledge?
Yes, she did. And when my children were first born, she helped my wife out a little bit with some laundry and stuff.
What, to your understanding, happened to her, if anything?
My understanding was that she was tripped by some of Alec and Maggie's dogs and hit her head, and approximately 3 weeks later, she died. I don't think she ever came out of the hospital.
Did you ever talk to the defendant about that event?
I recall having a brief conversation. It really wasn't a conversation. It was more him saying that the dogs knocked it down and that the kids were going to sue him for Gloria's death.
All right. The kids, which kids are you talking about?
Gloria's 2 boys, I believe she has.
When you say the kids were going to sue him, did he say it in the fashion of that was going to be an aggressive suit, or did he say it in the way that he was going to help out?
Oh, I understood exactly that it was going to be a friendly insurance claim, so to speak, so that, hey, this happened in hopes that the insurance company would probably pay them some amount of money. I took it to help them out.
Did you ever have any other conversations with him about that case other than that one?
Never had another conversation. Well, no, I've never had another conversation with him about it.
Are you familiar with a case known as the Ferris case or the Mack Trucks case?
Yes, I'm very familiar with it.
Did you have any involvement in that case?
Yes, early on I had some involvement. I was asked to get involved because it dealt with product failure, which is, going back to your reference, has sort of been my specialty over the years. It was where a drive shaft had fallen out of a Mack truck and caused a motorist to have an accident. And when we looked into it, and it turns out there was a recall on it, and so it pretty much made it where it wasn't going to be much of a fight about Mack's responsibility. And so I knew it then, and then when I didn't do anything else in it until it was coming up to trial, and I spent a lot of time talking with Alec about evidentiary issues, witnesses, how they were trying the case, and the posture of it, that type of thing. So yeah, I was familiar with it.
Okay. Did you ultimately get involved where you were one of the lawyers representing the Ferrises?
No, I did not help him try it.
We should stay a set difference.
An outside lawyer associated with that, or were there lawyers from other firms associated with that?
Well, as I referenced earlier, sometimes there's more than just 2 law firms. There was a lawyer, a friend of ours in Columbia, that got named Mr. Ridgway, got Mr. Chris Wilson involved, and then in turn, Chris Wilson asked Alec to get involved, which Alec and Chris had worked together a good bit over the years. So there was 3 law firms.
At some point in May of 2021, did you ever have a conversation with Jeannie Seconder about the...
That was the prior witness.
Well, let me back up. So ultimately, did Alec and these other lawyers try the Ferris case?
They did.
And did they get a recovery in that case?
They did.
And do you know how much Alex Murdaugh's share of the recovery was supposed to be?
I mean, the verdict was several $1 million. I believe that would have been in February of 2021. I believe the share that was supposed to go to PMPED was $792,000 as our portion of the fees.
And you corrected me, that was the amount that was supposed to go to the firm, correct?
Well, that's correct.
All right, $792,000. Did you ever, in May of 2021, did you ever have any conversation with Jeannie Seconder about those fees?
I did.
And tell me what that conversation was, please.
It was sometime in close relation to Alec asking me about structure and attorney's fees, I walked in Lee Cope's office. Lee and Jeannie were having a conversation about that issue and her efforts to get all the paperwork on the Ferris matter, and she was frustrated. She thought she was getting a runaround both from Chris Wilson and Alec. And then she mentioned something to me about that he had suggested to her that he was trying to hide fees from the boating case.
All right, and what was your reaction to that when you heard that?
Do you want me to say what I said?
You can say the sanitized version, or you can say the real version, either way.
Beep.
I said, oh, fuck, no, we're not.
All right, and why was that your reaction?
Well, because to do that under any circumstance was illegal, unethical, and he would be putting us at risk, and we absolutely were not going to participate in anything that was illegal, unethical, or subjected us to liability or created issues with the South Carolina Bar.
Was it the discussion of the firm leadership that needed to be gotten to the bottom of to make sure that didn't happen?
Well, it was Lee, I, and Jeannie, and we put it in her hands because if she told us that she was being told it was in trust at Chris Wilson's office, and I had no reason to doubt that. I thought he was just trying to take it out in some other way so it didn't go through our system or something, which it would also have been tax fraud on our part not to have that accounted for, because we would have got a 1099 at some point in time, and just it was myriad reasons why that wasn't going to ever happen. But I thought if they're saying it was there, Jeannie, just take care of it, get the money, and I didn't think any more about it, to be honest with you. I didn't think it was any stealing going on or anything. I thought that, and I knew that, I do involved a lot of our overseeing, a lot of the accounting and understand it, and there's just no damn way we were going to do that.
Sorry about that.
At that point in time, you just said you didn't think there was any stealing going on at that point. Not yet, at least. Right.
No, that never came up during that period. We're talking late May of 2021.
Let me ask you this. You've known the defendant since the 90s?
I have.
Did you get to know his family?
Yes, I did.
Did you get to know Maggie?
I knew Maggie.
Did you know her fairly well?
I felt like I did, yes. He was a very nice person.
Did you know Paul?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit of how you knew Paul.
I knew Paul since he was born. Both he and Buster had always referred to me as Uncle Ronnie. We lived just across the way from each other, so I got to know him. I don't know if he used to, when he got into hunting, he hunted a lot on my property, he and Buster. I have a farm right here in Colvin County where I grew up. And so I got to know him, that way. And then Paul was, didn't think this would be that hard. Paul was really good with kids, and he took a liking to my son, who was younger, but he spent a lot of time with him. He'd take him hunting, fishing. They did a lot of hog hunting together. Paul had some hog dogs, and just was around him a lot. He had a great personality. Just really, a kid I really loved,
Paul would come over to your property a good bit?
Yes, and then, and then sometimes as my son got older, he would go over to to Moselle and hunt with Parker. I hunt with Paul.
Said Parker.
Do you remember June 7th, 2021?
I do.
Did you see Alec earlier that day?
Can you ask that again? I'm sorry.
Did you see the defendant at any point during that day that you recall?
You know, I don't recall whether I saw him at the office. I was had been in a trial in Columbia that settled. It was a couple of week trial, and it settled on Friday afternoon. And I came to the office to dig out some stuff, but it's fishing season, and I promised my son as soon as I got out of trial we'd go offshore fishing. So I would have left work early that day to go get the boat prepared to go fishing. So I don't remember seeing Alec that morning or at the office. I could have, but it would have been, I saw him later that night, yes, sometime around 11 p.m.
Before we get there, were you at home at that time?
Yeah, I was at home. We just got finished getting the boat ready. You know, as a matter of fact, and by way of example, we had invited Paul to go fishing with us the next day, and he had to work and couldn't go. My son had called him about it. You know, it was, you know, I think we had just eaten supper and, you know, sitting there looking at weather and looking at all the things you do before you go offshore.
Did you get a phone call? Did you get a text?
My wife got a phone call, I believe, from Randy's wife wanting my partner, Mark Ball's wife, Lisa's phone number. She's a registered nurse. And it was sort of a quick phone call. She gave it to her. I don't know if Christy just couldn't get it at the time. And at some point after that, I called Randy and asked him, you know, what was going on. And I don't remember his exact words, but it was something about Maggie and Paul being shot.
When you heard that, what was your reaction?
I guess to best describe as shock, alarm. I immediately told my wife I had to go, and I got in my vehicle and started headed to Moselle.
Did you get there? About what time do you think you got there?
I did get there and arrived at, I'm going to say somewhere on one side or the other of 11 o'clock.
Did you go to the residence or did you go to the kennels?
Well, when I got there, I could see the lights. I didn't know where to go, but when I got there, I could see the lights at the kennels. And I was familiar with Moselle, having been there many times. And so I went to the lights. You could see there was law enforcement lights, maybe it could have been a Carlton Fire and Rescue, but it was obvious that's where you needed to go. So I came in the main gate and turned right on what used to be a runway and went straight to the kennels.
Did you get out of your car?
I did.
Did you talk to anyone at that point?
I'm confident that my partner, Mark Ball, was already there. Alec was there. And I know I spoke with both of them.
Were Maggie and Paul still there?
Yeah, Maggie and Paul were there.
Did you talk to the defendant at any point that night?
I did.
How long did you stay at Moselle after that first time you arrived, after Maggie and Paul's murder?
We stayed outside, and at some point, I'm going to say I stayed until about 3:30. It just seems we were standing around back in the house, and it just like we didn't know what to do or what to say, and I knew that Alec was going to have a long few days, several days coming up, and I was like, guys, we're not doing any good here. We need to all go get some sleep, and you know, so we can deal with tomorrow. And I think I was the first one to leave, and I almost feel like everybody else pretty much left in the period of time after that. But but I know I was the first to leave, and I think it was around 3:30.
Did you return to Moselle the next day?
I did.
Did you have conversations with the defendant the next day?
Yes.
Over the course of the night of and the next day, you have conversations with the defendant, did he either tell you or were you present when he related to you his activities the night of June 7th, 2021?
This is what we were expecting from this witness. Listen close.
Yes, I gained an understanding of the events of that night over multiple conversations and sometimes perhaps just questions, because, I mean, without being a lawyer, you would want to figure that out, and being a lawyer and just having something so horrific, we wanted to contribute anything we could to help figure out who did this, who did it.
And what did Alec tell you about his activities that night?
He told me, and when I say me, there may have been multiple people in these conversations. I mean, we were all back at the house at Moselle providing support for, our friend who just lost his family. And that he'd worked, and I'm somewhere 5:30 to 6 had left work, that he went to Moselle, that Paul had come home from work, and that they rode around, and then at some point they went back to the house and had dinner, and Maggie was there, is my understanding. And then after dinner, that Maggie and Paul went outside and to the dog kennels, and that he sat on the couch and fell asleep. And that would have been around 8 o'clock that he sat on the couch and ultimately fell asleep.
All right. He said between 8 and 9 o'clock he was asleep on the couch, or he was at the house?
He said I took it that he laid down on the couch, maybe watching TV, and fell asleep, and then around 9 o'clock he woke up, and then somewhere around 9 o'clock he went to back to Varnville, to Alameda, to check on his mother.
And what did he say after that? He did after that?
Well, he said he laid on the bed with her. He didn't give a time, but that he laid there. I took it he was just sort of laying there to comfort her because I understood her condition. And then he said that he came back to Moselle and that he went to the house, and that when he got to the house, he discovered that Maggie and Paul were not there, and that he then got back in his car, or his Suburban, which was an office-issued vehicle, and he drove down to the kennels, and it's more than just kennels there. I think y'all have seen maybe sheds there. And he discovered Maggie and Paul's bodies.
Did he say whether or not he had gone down to the kennels with Maggie and Paul before he left to go to Alameda after 9 p.m.?
That came up in one of the conversations, and he specifically said that he did not.
He did not.
He did not.
I'm going to play for you what's been admitted into evidence as States 297. I want you to listen to it and tell me if you recognize any voices on this video, please.
I got a phone call there that I had to take the key part. I don't know what I missed. Okay, let's listen to this. Somebody needs to tell me what I missed, though. Here.
Get that. Get that. Quit, Cash. Come on. Quit. That's all right. Come here. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Post it. Cash. Hey, he got a bird in his mouth. Baba. Hey, Baba. It's a guinea. It's a chicken. Come here, Baba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Baba. Cash. Quit.
Did you recognize any voices on that video?
The three voices on that video are the voices of Paul Murdaugh, Maggie Murdaugh, and Alex Murdaugh.
And how sure are you? How sure are you?
I'm 100% sure that's whose voices are on that, the audio there.
Okay. Oh, man. So the story is flipped for what he told this partner.
Is this law firm pretty close-knit?
Yeah, we're very close-knit. A group of lawyers. I think we have a very family-like environment with our staff, as well as the lawyers are all very close. A lot of us do and still do, a lot of activities together. Our families grew up together. Been a great experience working with these guys.
Did these murders of Maggie and Paul, did it send a shockwave through the law firm, greater family?
Well, yes, it did. Just beyond the horror and disbelief, we didn't have an understanding. I mean, the staff had a general sense of insecurity and fear. We had to take a lot of security measures because we did not have an understanding of what the possibilities out there could be. And then this horrific loss of, I think Paul had, kids, Maggie would come up to the law firm regularly, maybe need to use a computer or just to see Alec or whatever. So and it was as much of a shock as you could imagine.
In the wake of this tragedy, did the law firm family rally to the defendant's aid?
We did. We were there every day for the rest of the week, and as you already know, Mr. Randolph passed away in the wake of this, so it was a really bad week where the Murdaugh family in particular, but all of us needed to be together to support each other.
With all of this tragedy and the support and the outpouring and everything going on, did you have any discussion about what to do about the Ferris fees, or was there a discussion that this can't be the time to bring this up?
The only discussion that I recall was Alec told you they were in trust. There's no way we're going to talk about money in this, and we had no reason to not believe that. I wasn't aware of some of Jeannie's conversations, I was aware that Alec told her they were in trust. I trusted him, and I I said, let's just leave it be. You know, I don't know. I would, just not something that you would talk about as money in the wake of such tragedy that had gone on the week of June 7th, including the loss of Mr. Randolph.
At some point in July of 2021, did it come to your understanding that at least the firm had heard from Chris Wilson's firm that supposedly those missing fees were in his trust account?
That was reported to me. I did not look at the email, but it was reported, and that was even further confirmation that we didn't have an issue, because we had worked on many cases with Mr. Wilson's law firm, and if he said it, another lawyer who's a friend and colleague said, I've got the money, then, you know, it wasn't something to be concerned about.
Before I get to ask you this, you said that you had developed a relationship with Paul, is that right?
We've heard testimony.
Yes.
Did you eulogize Paul at his funeral?
The timeline's correct.
I did.
Good.
And you and your son like to hunt and fish and do outdoor things with Paul?
We did.
And that's how you got to know him well?
Well, you got to understand that even like when we go to legal conventions, a lot of time we take our kids with us. And I was just around Paul a lot. It wasn't just hunting and fishing, but he pretty much had free reign of my property. But he would always tell me. Paul was a very polite young man, and he wouldn't just go even though he could. He would always let me know. And you know, he killed a lot of his first deer on our property, and you know, just
a lot of his first deer.
Grow up.
Did Paul have a shotgun he favored, to your knowledge?
I would see Paul with a like a 12-gauge Benelli Super Black Eagle. Yeah, I've seen him with that a number of times.
Did Paul occasionally like to hunt hogs?
There was a period of time where he was obsessed with it. He had dogs and those 300 blackout with thermal scopes, and you know, he would do it. And I love for him to come to my property to do it, because anybody has ever seen what hogs do to property, they're a nuisance. And so I was happy for him to come and shoot them.
And he used what gun for that?
Well, you know, in the early years he used a 300 a lot, and then they got where they were catching them and killing them with knives and stuff like that. So they you know, the hog hunters do it in different ways, but the 300 blackout, I think, was usually accompanying them.
In the aftermath of the murders, did you have any conversation, or were you privy to any conversation in which Alec talked about the family 300 blackouts?
Well, the day after, I saw the casings that night and thought that they were 223s. And when I found out the next day from somebody with Carlton County, one of the guys I knew who was there, that there were actually 300 blackouts, you know, we started inquiring of where Paul's and Buster's 300 blackouts were located. And I remember asking Alec about it, and he said that one of them was in the room, and that he didn't know where the other one was.
Did he mention a third one at that time?
At some point he did. That there was a.
Go ahead.
He said that one of them had gotten stolen or misplaced, which if it was misplaced, that would not seem odd to me, because Paul was pretty good about it. He would sometimes leave his guns at my place, and that he had bought a replacement at some point in time. I don't recall the dates on any of that.
Did he tell you what happened to the replacement?
No, I assumed that the replacement was, that they still had the replacement. I never heard anything about anything with the replacement, just that they had a total of 3. And I remembered that Mr. Bedingfield had built those rifles.
You testified that after moving into July and August, you'd gotten an email, or at least been informed that there had been some representation that Chris Wilson had those fees, correct?
That's correct.
Moving into September of 2021, did you have any trial or anything going on that you were actively involved in at the time?
At the end of August, early September, I was getting ready for a products liability trial over in Dorchester County that was going to last several weeks.
Did you receive any communications from your firm about any issues regarding the defendant?
We were doing pretrial motions, things that you do before trial starts. There's a lot of work that gets done by the court, and so we were taking care of a lot of things that would keep the jury from waiting around during the trial beforehand. And September 2nd, we were over arguing motions and taking care of pretrial matters. And so when I got out of court, I saw that I'd missed communications from one of my partners, Mark Ball, and I called him, and he said, "We have a problem." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "You have to come now." And I said, "I'm just walking out of court. I need to go home and eat supper, and it's not on my way." And he didn't ever tell me what it was, but he said, "You have to come now." And I could tell the urgency, and so he told me where to meet him, and that would have been in Cummings, South Carolina, at my partner Danny Henderson's place, and which was not on my way home, but he was so insistent that I went there and met. When I got there, Danny and Mark were there waiting on me.
And ultimately, what was your discussion?
I was giving a folder that had paperwork in it, and that paperwork consisted of checks, both front and back, and I was asked to review them.
And were those the what's been called the fake forged checks?
I believe the fake forged checks, there was not all of them that Ms. Seckinger went over, but I believe that there was, I could probably call the names of most of them that were there. I know it was Anderson, Bush, Moore. There was about 5 or 6 of them, and I believe they had a copy of the Ferris check there too.
Ferris check?
Yes, and I'd sat for a minute and reviewed it. I think Danny said, "You're going to need a drink." And so...
Did you have a drink?
Yeah, ultimately more than one.
What happened after that?
Well, they didn't tell me what was in it. They let me review it on my own. And I immediately said, this is bad. And my words then were that we have to terminate Alec. He cannot no longer practice with us. And that was within, I don't know how many minutes, but it was not a long period of time, because the way Jeannie had it laid out, it was clear what had happened and that this money had been stolen.
Did any of the partners go to confront Alec with this information that had been uncovered?
Yes, there was a meeting the following morning at Lee's house. I did not attend. I did not need to attend. I was still getting ready for trial. I had already decided where this was going, and they met, and then we, Danny and Randy, Alec's brother, went and met with Alec.
And what was your understanding of what the defendant said as a result of that?
That he admitted and said that he knew he was going to get caught at some point in time, and admitted to them that he did it.
Yes, the jury's here. They're hearing this. I wonder when defense heard what he was going to testify
Ultimately,
to.
did
Sometime
the
today, I'm
firm
guessing.
engage in a very extensive investigation to determine the extent of any alleged misappropriation that the defendant had done related to client fee, firm fees or client money?
We did. We initially turned over what we had to state law enforcement, and then decided to, we immediately decided to hire an outside auditor, a forensic auditor, to come in and look at our books to see if there was anything else. But parallel with that, we were doing our own internal investigation into his files.
And was Jeannie Seckinger, your CFO, was she heavily involved in that review?
She was a point person doing that with whatever support staff she needed under my supervision and Mark and Lee's supervision.
And have you seen spreadsheets that she's made and other documentation that's been put together and gathered by others in the firm as that investigation went forward?
I'm very familiar with all of it.
And are the results of those accurate as you've been able to review firm records and gather information?
The documents that were entered into evidence earlier today through Ms. Seckinger are accurate.
At any point in time, whether June of 2021 or going back years, if you, as a partner in PMPD, had found out that the defendant was allegedly diverting money to an account in the name of a business, an account that he actually controlled, and then converting that to personal use client money, what would you have done?
If I had become aware of it, he would have been asked to resign, or I would have forced a vote, and he would have been terminated under our contract.
What else, if anything, would you have done?
I would have done the same thing we did, would have turned it over to law enforcement and would have reported to the South Carolina Bar because of it affected our business and our trust account.
If at any point over the years you had found out that the defendant had been diverting fees that would properly due the firm and spending those for personal use and never accounting for them and not being truthful with firm members, what, if anything, would you have done?
He would have been asked to resign, or a vote would have been called and he would have been terminated.
All right. What else would you have done, if anything?
Because that conduct would have been illegal, it would have been reported to law enforcement as well as the South Carolina Bar.
If at any point in time you had uncovered or had discovered information that the defendant was having checks issued from the firm trust account in the name of Palmetto State Bank, and then having someone at the bank convert those into checks that he could use for personal use, what, if anything, would you have done?
Would have asked for his immediate resignation and or forced a vote, and he would have been terminated. His activities would have been reported to law enforcement, as well as any activities of anyone at the bank who was complicit in this, what I would call a money laundering scheme.
And in each one of those instances, would the firm have also engaged in a detailed review to determine the extent of any alleged misappropriation?
Well, absolutely, and I could only wish that one of those clients early on had brought that something to our attention, so we could have dealt with it years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Prosector. Nothing further at this time.
Here comes the cross. Let's see what they bring.
I'll stand for a moment.
Okay, give me just 1 second. Let me pause this just for a second while I'm matching everything up. We're trying to get all the different videos in the same time frame so we can switch back and forth between different sources. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Okay. Hold tight just 1 second. Still off just by a second. And there. Okay. All right. So we got all the sinks matched up here. It's a nice chair, Judge. You, of all people, should not have to stand and rest. It looks like a comfy chair. No closed captions because it causes a long delay to make closed captions, like 30 seconds. What is the big overheard secret thing? That was the conversation he heard in Paul's home a day or two after, and him recounting the events of that night. And he had specifically said he did not go down to the kennels that night. He was not there at all, which is not consistent with the Snapchat video that matches. We already know the timeline from the cell phone. We know the timeline from Rogan, the friend that was being texted back and forth and called back and forth by Paul that verified that it was at 8:44 p.m. that video was taken. He was waiting for it to come back, and it never got to him. He was dead before 9.
Mr. Griffin?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Crosby.
Good afternoon, Mr. Griffin.
Can we get this photo taken down? Can we just kill it? Just kill it?
Don't use the word kill.
Oh, it's a computer thing. There it went. So it's good. It's good. We're good. Thank you.
Getting Alex back up. Just 1 second.
Crosby, I was struck by a comment you made, and I just want to confirm it. You were informed by folks at the meeting when Alex was confronted about financial misdeeds. According to the reports you received, that Alex's response was he knew he was going to get caught at some point in time. Is that what was reported to you?
That's what I recall.
Okay. And he asked you to speak at, eulogize Paul at Paul's funeral, right?
He did, and I did.
Yeah, and you very close to Paul, and Paul was a super guy, wasn't he?
Yes to both of those questions.
Yeah. You said that Paul carried around a 300 blackout and a 12 gauge shotgun, a Benelli Super Eagle, I believe you said?
That's my memory. And you know, obviously they had numerous guns, but I had seen Paul with those on multiple occasions.
If I showed you a Benelli Super Eagle that's in the courtroom, would you be able to recognize it's Paul's or not? Or?
I don't know at this juncture. I believe it was camouflaged.
Camouflaged Super Eagle. Okay.
I mean, all camouflaged Super Eagles.
I'm trying to not point at anybody, but does this look like Paul's gun?
I'll say it looked like it. Will I say it was? I can't say that.
I understand, and Your Honor, I'm holding up, for the record, states exhibit number 4. And I put my papers down. Also, you testified that when you got to Moselle the night of the 7th, that you were you went through the main entrance, and that's the entrance with the, I guess, the brick facade or whatever, the brick gates opening up. That's the main entrance you went in?
Yes, there's a brick facade and then I think they're metal iron gates, okay. But they were open.
And then if you go up and you would have gone straight to the house if you'd gone straight, but you turned right, and you said, you know, and there's a little roadway there, an old runway, and you were able to get back up to where the kennels were from that direction, correct?
That's correct. It's not far when you turn right, you know,
right.
A couple hundred yards maybe.
And then, but you said you were able to see shell casings, what you thought would be 223. Where were they?
The one, I don't think I saw every one that was there. I remember seeing one, seems like in the driveway. Closer to the road from Paul and Maggie's bodies.
So were you able to get inside the crime scene tape?
I don't know if there was crime scene tape up at that point in time.
Okay. So you were able, as you recall, just to walk up. Were Maggie and Paul's bodies covered at the time you got there?
Yes.
But you were able to get into the crime scene close enough where you could tell what you thought the caliber of the shell case.
Right, and I didn't walk from where I was parked there. I walked completely around the hangar and went over to talk to people I knew that were there, the fire and rescue people, just to get what their assessment was. And I could see from where they were positioned, I could see, I wasn't like, I didn't get over it, but I could see from a distance, and I'm very familiar with sure. Firearms, and I saw what I thought was a 223 casing.
Okay. And you later learned, I guess, the next day on the 8th that it wasn't a 223, but a 300 blackout. Is that right?
Yes, and I can't for the life of me tell you there was at that point in time there was some law enforcement out in the hangar and around, and I just
here's what we're talking about.
Asked a question, and they corrected me.
Right. Okay.
This stretch right here across the property in the middle of the screen, that was a runway.
And you...
He's saying that he came in the main entrance, which was right here.
Started to assist
turned down the roadway and went down here, and he was
trying
watching
to find out who could have done this. Isn't that right?
Well, Jim, I didn't that night. I was trying to get, and we were starting to, I don't know, it was shot, man, you know. But out in the days following, we had a lot of conversation amongst my partners and I about who could have done this, and obviously we were theorizing on stuff, and with very little information, obviously, but we were trying to find out things, whether Paul had been in an argument with anyone, or if anybody had. I don't know, it's just what you would naturally do, is ask questions.
One of the things, you went down to Jimmy Butler's. You remember that?
I did.
Now, what's Jimmy Butler's?
Jimmy Butler's a business in Varnville that does mechanic work. He sells trailers, he sells portable buildings, used to sell cars, but I had learned that Paul had taken his truck there the Friday before the murders.
Right. And so the Friday before the murders, Paul's truck, and what was his normal truck? Was it F?
It was a F-150.
A white F-150.
White F-150.
And you had understood that his white F-150 was put in the shop at Jimmy Butler?
Yes, and I specifically was going to see if Paul's guns were in his truck.
Right. And did you check the truck?
I did. I looked inside of it, and I also got. I had learned that Mr. Rowe was working for Alec at the time, and had taken him over to pick him up when he took his truck to drop off for repairs. And I asked Mr. Butler to pull surveillance tape so I could see if Paul got his guns out of his truck while he was getting out of one vehicle into another.
And because it was Paul's habit to carry the guns in his truck, right?
Right, and I believe actually when I looked in there was still a pistol and some shotgun shells, that type of stuff in there, but I didn't see any long guns. I didn't get inside of his truck and rummage around. I just looked.
And so you didn't observe any .300 blackout or any shotgun in Paul's truck at Jimmy Butler's, is that right?
I did not.
And then I think you also looked at videotape to see if Paul took guns out of his truck when he got back in. I guess Mr. Rowe picked him up, is that right?
That's correct, and another one of another pickup that Alec had on the farm.
And you didn't see Paul removing any guns from his truck when he got in the truck with Mr. Rowe?
That was not evident on the video.
Okay.
And I could see him getting out of one vehicle into the other.
And you were down there on the morning of the 8th, and after SLED had released the crime scene. And when I say there, I'm talking about down at the kennels. Were you not?
Yes, I was asked to go there by Randy's brother, Alec.
Okay. And
I'm fighting with my system here. Just one second. There we go.
I mean, I don't want to be too grotesque at all, but just, were there still blood and biological material there at the scene?
Yes.
Okay. And did you notice that there were some still birdshot pellets in the feed room that had not been collected by the SLED agent?
Yes. They were what appeared to me to be you know, we could pretty much tell what they were, yeah, from looking at them. And I believe they would have been a TSS type load.
Okay. And did you gather those up, to your knowledge?
Did I?
You or anybody, you know, with you?
Jim, I mean, Mr. Griffin, I apologize.
Call me.
We know each other, so I apologize.
Please, call me Jim.
That area in that room Well, we could see them. It was so bad. We thought we were going to, at some point, clean it up, but it overwhelmed both my partner, Mark, and I. Well, we could see that, and we could see everything, all the other aftermath. I mean, we were getting biological material. I mean, it just couldn't be there. It was bad, you know, and it was overwhelming us. So, no, I did not try to collect evidence.
And the scene inside that feed room, I take it as something that still is etched in your mind's eye memory.
Yes.
When you were down there, when you got there the first time, I believe you went up to Mark Ball, and he was there. He got there before you.
Maybe a few minutes. Okay. We had already talked about, you know, that.
Did it look to you and Mark like the crime scene was being preserved and carefully keeping people off of areas that maybe they shouldn't be trampling on?
Well, it was my understanding that the crime scene had been released, so that.
Well, I'm talking about 11 o'clock. I'm sorry, I jumped back. 11 o'clock when you got there, around 11 on the night of the 7th. When you pulled up, as I understand, you walked around the shed, the workshop, and went to the back, and maybe Mr. Ball was back there. I could have that wrong, but is that what happened?
Well, we were there. I saw people working through the crime scene, and you're kind of asking me for an opinion that I don't feel qualified to give, because I assumed that whatever was going on was being done with whatever procedures. But there were people in that, in the crime scene doing various things.
Okay. And I'm not asking you to give an opinion. I was just asking you if anyone expressed an opinion in your presence about they shouldn't be doing this or should be doing that.
I don't specifically recall.
Okay.
Rosie from Tucson just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Rosie.
You and Mark and whoever else, were y'all directed to go to the main residence at?
We were, and for the life of me, I can't tell you who told us to go. I can tell you it was at the time that whoever is the photographer for the crime scene, they were getting ready to start, taking photographs, and it was stated that we're going to photograph the scene. Y'all go to the house. We don't, you don't need to be in these photographs.
Okay. And so who all went to the house, best you can remember?
I know I did. I know Mark did. Austin Crosby, who's one of my partners, did. Danny Henderson did. Randy Murdaugh did. John Marvin did. Alex at some point did. And he may have been, I believe he was accompanied by some officers when he came. I think maybe Chris Wilson may have. The others I'm positive of, but sure. There could have been a couple other people.
And had it looked to you like anybody from law enforcement had searched the residence, inspected the residence before you guys went in?
I don't know that I would know what it would look like if it had been searched. It was my perception that it had not been searched yet.
And then you mentioned at some point in time, Alec came up, and maybe law enforcement were with him?
Mr. Griffin, my memory is that Alec came in, and at or about the same time, 2 agents came, and I remember them collecting his clothes is what stands out to me. One stood in the doorway or the foyer to the house. We were kind of in the living room and maybe the kitchen area, and then another agent, and I'm assuming it was SLED, but it was kind of blurry, and it happened pretty quickly. Went maybe to the door of a bedroom while Elliot was changing clothes, and then he brought his clothes out and gave them to the agent who stood in the edge of the living room or foyer or whatever you want to call it.
And did the agent just open up a bag and Alec dumped his clothes in the bag? Is that how you remember it? A paper bag?
I do not know what the composition of the bag was. It was a bag, and it seemed to me the agent was holding the bag out, like, open.
Right.
And that Alec kind of had his clothes in his fingers and just dropped them in, is what my memory was. And what that was, I only recall there being one bag, and he dropped them in, and it was like a pretty quick transaction.
His clothes were not put on a hanger, for sure. Is that right?
No, Elliot had them in his hands when he came out of the bedroom. He was in there long enough to take those off, and I think he put back on another pair of shorts or something and a shirt.
I know, I'm sorry I'm jumping around a little bit.
It's okay, I've been right where you are,
Right.
and that happens.
One lawyer to another.
I think you mentioned in one of your interviews with SLED that Alec had some annoying quirks, and one of them, he would just take phone calls in the middle of deposition.
He would.
Would
Does sound annoying.
Would he get phone calls from his family, Buster, Maggie, and Paul, and drop everything and take the calls?
I've witnessed that.
Was that frequent?
Yes, he would do it in depositions. He would do it in the middle of a conversation, and not with them, but definitely with them. And even in partner meetings and stuff, he would take a call and walk out of the room.
Sure, sure. You had mentioned in your testimony that when you were asked by this second juror about this Ferris fee issue, that really your concern was not that Alec was diverting fees, but he was trying to shelter fees from being disclosed in the civil case. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, let's make sure definitionally we're talking about the same thing. My concern was not that he was stealing, because I trusted him. I had no reason to believe that he was stealing. It was the latter, that what she conveyed to me was he was wanting to hide some fees or hide money somehow. I don't remember it being said that it was like I heard earlier in Maggie's name. It was just that he was going to take the fees from Chris Wilson's account, so there wouldn't be any record, is the way I understood it, in our trust account.
Right. And you said, F no, we're not doing that.
Those were my words.
Right.
We heard those words.
What was Alex, scratch that. After the murders of Maggie and Paul, did you, the immediate aftermath and going forward a few months, did Alec come to the office much?
It was sporadic, but you know, I knew that he was having a lot of trouble sleeping, and you know, he just lost his family and his father, and him and his father were very close. We were aware that, or had understanding that he was taking like medicine to try to help him sleep, and maybe for anxiety, and just you know, the normal things that you would expect there. So even when he came, I would walk in his office and he'd be falling asleep in his chair. He'd be sitting in there, you know, which was evident to me that he wasn't sleeping well. And so I know Ms. Seconder mentioned pills earlier that he was taking. That's what we knew he was taking, because he couldn't sleep at night. He'd be up at all hours of the night.
And did you notice changes in his physical appearance, losing weight?
Yes, he was losing weight. I don't think he was eating very well by all reports.
And I guess let's sort of go back. The night of June 7th, the morning of June 8th was, I mean, what was his demeanor?
Well, his demeanor is that he was upset. I could tell that, and he, you know.
You see him cry?
Yeah, we cried together. I mean, he kept telling me, especially to me, he kept telling me how much Paul loved me, and you know, every time he would say that, we would it would be emotional. I mean, and then he told me that several times over the next few days. It was just almost be how he would start a conversation with me would be to talk about Paul.
And then did he spend a lot of time with Buster down at Maggie's parents in Somerville, to your knowledge?
I knew they were. Can you give me the time frame?
So starting in June?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I know he and Maggie's parents had a good relationship, and I recall, because in some of this, I remember seeing some texts between he and I that he was down there. I don't remember. Well, they're dated. I'm sure you have them.
Right.
And he told me he was down with Maggie's parents. It was one of the days in that time immediately following the murders.
Right. And then at one point in time around, I don't know if it's 4th of July, did he come to your place by boat, or do you remember that? And
by boat.
Can't say that it was on the 4th of July, but I remember his brother Randy and his wife. I had invited them to my house, you know, for the 4th, and you know, for spend, and they had, you know, something that those of us in the law firm do a lot, to spend time on the weekends together, and they were there, and I'd asked Alec to come over, and he and Buster came by boat from Edisto.
Right. And Alec was carrying a gun with him on the boat, was he not?
Yes, he had a gun in a what I want to call a shopping bag, like a cloth type
carpet bag,
shopping bag, not one of those plastic ones.
Had you ever seen Alec carrying a gun around before for protection before the murders?
No.
Some point in time, Alec and Buster and the family put out a reward, did they not, for capture of tips for whoever would lead to the arrest of whoever killed Maggie and Paul. Do you remember that?
I do remember that, and who all was involved in the funding of it, I don't know, but there was a reward, I believe was I know a reward was put out.
And the firm agreed to administer it if there was anyone step forward.
We did.
1 second, Your Honor.
Interesting stuff here. Someone else's money. Quick way of get rid of a weapon. It sounds like this is a pistol he was carrying in that bag. Well, Freedom, I agree. I think he is more upset about his son dying than his wife.
Redirect.
Firm have to ever pay anybody for that reward?
No.
You're asked a lot of questions about your interactions and relationship with Alex Murdaugh. You've known Alex Murdaugh how long?
Well, I guess a total of 25 years or so.
Did you really know Alex Murdaugh?
What's the question?
Did he really know Alex Murdaugh?
The judge just woke up. What's the question?
A character question.
Did he know Alex Murdaugh? Did he really know Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
I sustain the objection.
Thank you. Nothing further.
I think the judge was
Anything
asleep.
further?
No, Your Honor.
Step down. You'll go to the jury room for a break.
Yep. I think the judge just was contemplating the proceedings of the court. And let's see. Teresa says, what's the best way to send you a link to a video pertaining to this case? Teresa, send it to the burner phone is the best way. Type !burner in chat and we'll respond with the current burner number. And then and if you can also include in that text with the link your name so I can match you up. I won't reveal your number. I keep those secret. So it's anonymous. My sources are all anonymous, but I will reveal your name if you give me permission. A little bit of a carb coma after
Coming
lunch.
up next, Mr. Waters.
Your Honor, we have the GSR expert, and that's the next thing. I think we can get that witness done before the end of the day.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I just asked Mr. Griffin, he's the cross on this, and he's
Shouldn't
been
take long.
talking nothing but GSR for 2 days. I'm a little worried about that timetable.
All right. Well, we'll take about 7 minutes.
7-minute break. What's the big blue deal on the screen? It just depends which angle, which camera I'm taking. Different sources. I'm using 3 different feeds to grab all the pictures so I can show reactions to whatever's happening in court. Sometimes they shift up how they're orienting the video on the screen, so I have to reprogram my end. Let's see. Yeah, there's the burner phone. If you need that one, Teresa, and that comes right here to my desk. So let's see if somebody sent me anything already. Let's see, Tag sent me some stuff. Thank you, Tag. Grady's "Did you hear me?" phrase. Sheriff Grady. Got some possible emoji art from Color Me Abstract to review. Let's see. Yeah, Michelle. Let's see what we got here. Question in the Alex Murdaugh trial: who allows people to show up on a double homicide scene? This is crazy because the police aren't the ones who are making this call, but Alex started calling people. He called the police and then he started just putting calls out to everybody, and everyone. It spread like wildfire, and everybody just showed up. This is a place that most of these people had been to many, many times previously. And they have, a strong connection with the family, and they just show up to this is the Southern thing to do. You show up when somebody's having something go wrong. They show up, and some of them showed up very early in the investigation, like before the crime scene tape was up, which is possibly a problem. We're going to need a bigger mothership, says Samantha. We do have a few in chat. That's awesome. Let's see, some of my family think we need groceries during a court case. I find the pickles are I did find the pickles at Walmart. Awesome. Love those pickles. Spicy maple bourbon. I feel like I've missed so much. Ready, Freddy. There's been a lot. We're going over a lot of what happened the last few days, though, with the 404B witnesses with these financial crimes. You heard the objection that the defense made about the character reference. Like, did you really know Alex Murdaugh? That goes to his character. And the stipulation that they had agreed on is that this evidence, this 404B evidence, is not to be used to determine Alex's character. This is not to go to his character. And so that objection was sustained for the defense, one of the few that have been sustained for the defense in the last couple of days. A lot has been going the way of the prosecution as far as judge rulings recently. That being said, I do think Judge Newman is fair. I think he's doing a good job. We've got gunshot residue coming up next. These are going to be the actual test results. So we've waited a long time for this. We've heard about what's been swabbed and who's been swabbed and when things are swabbed and how the swabs were handled and who they were turned over to. Now we get to hear what the results of the swab tests are. So that'll be important. I think we're definitely going to hear that there was gunshot residue on that blue parka, that raincoat, the jacket, the thing that was not a tarp. So I think that's coming in. That's going to be interesting. I don't, for me, that's not that blue jacket having GSR on it. I don't know. Isn't it stay around for a while? Isn't that gunshot residue? It doesn't just like disappear on an inanimate object like that in a house. Wouldn't it stick around? Could his dad have shot using that parka in the last rainstorm or something? Shot at some animals or whatever it was on his farm target practice and have that gunshot residue there and then have hung up the jacket and it would be around still. Let's see. Got a picture for Samantha. Okay. Let's see. Gunshot residue next. Let's see. Question. There was a ridiculous question. Why is gunshot residue so important? If they hunted often, wouldn't be on most of their clothes? Yes, and you've got some states that granted, like in what was the last trial that we just had this come up in? I can't even remember which one we watched before this. Not the Jensen trial, but the one before that. There was basically GSR. I think. It was the the kid that killed his family, found guilty. I can't even remember his name now. Anyway. They don't even allow gunshot residue tests in that state. They don't do them. They completely stopped doing them because they're unreliable. Some states have ruled that. Other states are still doing it. Here in South Carolina, they still do it. And so that's coming in. Let's see. Pam Jams, welcome to the gallery. Good to have you here as a member. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your support. Please take your seat. Let's see. Alex Jackson. Thank you so much. That was the guy. Alex Jackson was the trial where they don't do GSR. So they didn't test his hands for GSR. There would be GSR everywhere, I think. These guys hunted, the fact that they had guns in the car all the time was not just that they wanted to have guns in case they needed them. No, they used them all the time. That was the way of life. There was, every time you're driving from the house down to the dog kennel, you might see a coyote and take a shot at it. Anytime you saw a hog, you'd want to shoot at it. The hogs were a major pest, invasive species that just destroy property and everything. It's something they're constantly fighting. So they always had guns with them. Let's see. We need a GSR magnet. Samantha, I don't know what you missed. There wasn't a lot of new evidence, I think, new information that came out in this one, in this last little bit. We've got just a couple minutes before we come back to trial here. Carl, you've got a long name. Carl de Antediluvian Prince. Carl the Antediluvian Prince. Greetings. Could you please shout out my Uncle Dean and Uncle and Aunt Shells? They're huge fans of yours, watch you all the time, and it's their anniversary today. Wanted to surprise them. Dean and Aunt Shells, congratulations on an anniversary. Thank you so much for for being here. Carl, let us know that today's the big day, and congratulations for that. Hopefully that is a surprise. Carl, thank you so much for letting us be part of that. That's pretty neat. Hogs are literally causing America to suffer food insecurity. That's how bad the problem is. It is major. Only the people down in the area really understand how bad it is. Let's see. His neighbors downwind surely must be covered with GSR. Everyone was. I think the neighbors had some of their own. Anybody know the jury composition, men and women? Yes, we know that there are 8 women and 4 men. And of the alternates, one of the men was excused this morning because he was in the emergency room. We don't know why, but the judge excused him. He was an alternate. We also know that the juror number 729, who is also a man, was the one who said, I can give 3 weeks and then I'm done. The judge talked to him about that, and apparently he's worked out whatever the problem was with his employment, and he's going to be staying on, at least for the time. Samantha, Little Miss says, Samantha Terry, let me start over. I sent a pic to RA. Pistol is, of course, playing with stolen Tupperware. Yes, I have a picture from Little Miss for Samantha. So, Samantha, if you can text me and make sure you send me your name with a text, then I can get you that picture. I can route it over to you. You get your hands covered by GSR if you use the same cleaning rag. Yep. We might have to get KF7 AIK. Is that it? We might have to get his take on this because I know he has some experience with GSR testing, maybe in an airport setting. Let's put it that way. And false positives and how easy it is to set off. Let's see. Antediluvian, before the biblical flood. All right. Learn a new word every day. Carl is a gavel hound. Awesome. Great to have you over here, Carl. Thanks, Mutt, for introducing him over here. I appreciate that. Carl the Antediluvian Prince. Sweet. That's a cool name. I love the cool names you guys come up with. You missed that Alex Murdaugh is 3 places at the same time: sleeping on the couch, in the kennel on Snapchat, and visiting his old mother. Yeah, that doesn't fly very well because we know of only one Alex Murdaugh. But we still have some other issues. We have the fact that that Maggie's phone changed orientation for the last time before Alex Murdaugh's truck started in the according to the GPS in the computer on his property. So there's some issues there with timestamps. This is going to be a disaster for the prosecution. As far as the GSR, my spidey senses told me we were gender checking the jury, so I had to pop in and say, "Stop it! Treat everyone as an individual." Charlie does not like the gender checking of the jury. I just find it interesting to see who's there. We have yet to have any information that proves one way or another whether that has a bearing on anything. Please be seated. There we go. Please be seated.
You may bring the jury.
Yeah, Brooks's next case is going to be a nightmare for the judge. Again, it sounds like, if he allows him to represent him. And I wonder if he's seen what he did in Judge Doro's case. It's like, you know what? I'm going to use that tape. I'm going to use that muzzle. I've got these options available to me. Obviously, it didn't work last time. Just the threat of them. I'm going to use them this time. That'll be interesting to see. 12 humans, enough said. Yes, we have 12 people and a couple alternates. Charlie's always looking for trouble. I like Charlie bringing things up. I can count on him to have a a well thought out opinion that in most cases is different than my own, and it causes me to think.
Thank you. Your next witness.
Police Court, State of South Carolina would now call forensic scientist Megan M. Fletcher.
I've never heard somebody called by their title like that. Forensic scientist Megan N. Fletcher. Obviously, the jury's going to find out just who it is. And she's going to list all her credentials and everything.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. As you take a seat at the
I love this symbol and what it means. You guys are awesome.
Spell your last name.
Jenny, I don't think that we're going to take that case next. It's going to be a very short case.
My name is Megan Fletcher, Fletcher.
Good afternoon, Ms. Fletcher.
Good afternoon.
With the court's permission, we're going to end day 12, okay?
Yes, sir.
Would you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about yourself, but also your background, your training, and your training in the field of expertise I've asked you to testify about here today, please?
Yes, sir. So I grew up in Ohio. I was born and raised there. After I graduated from high school, I attended Chatham College in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I graduated from there in 2005 with my bachelor's degree in biochemistry and English. After that, I went to Marshall University, where I obtained my master's in forensic science, emphasizing in computer forensics and forensic chemistry in 2007.
She sounds super nervous, too.
I then started my career at SLED in 2007 as well, where I started my training to become a trace evidence analyst in the Forensic Services Laboratory. And the first thing that I started training in was gunshot primer residue analysis.
Why did you come to South Carolina?
For the job.
Okay. Did you have any relatives here or family?
I do, but it was really for the job. Trace evidence was always kind of my dream job.
Okay. So tell us some more about trace evidence and your training and your background and what you loved about it.
So trace evidence is a type of evidence that you can't typically see with the naked eye. So you need a microscope or other types of instrumentation to be able to detect it. For trace evidence in the Forensic Services Laboratory at SLED, we consider explosives, fire debris, fibers, glass, gunshot primer residue, paint, fibers, physical fit analysis, pressure-sensitive tape, and general physical and chemical unknowns, all different types of trace evidence.
Specifically in the field of gunshot primer residence, tell us about your training, your experience, and what has led you to this point where I'm going to offer you for an expert in just a minute.
So in 2007, I started my career. I started my training at that point. I began an 11-month training program for gunshot primer residue analysis. It's an in-house training program that consists of practical, written, and oral examinations in the theory of gunshot primer residue, as well as the instrumentation used to analyze that type of evidence.
So what is it?
Gunshot primer residue, well, let's start with gunshot residue. Gunshot residue is everything that comes out of a gun when it's fired. That's the smoke, the soot, the flame, burned and unburned gunpowder particles, but also something called gunshot primer residue. And that's what we're looking for at the Trace Lab at SLED. Gunshot primer residue particles are microscopic molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. They come from the primer component of the cartridge.
And can you explain some more? How do you examine it? What do you do to determine if there's gunshot primer residue?
So I believe that you've already heard about how gunshot primer residue is collected. It's collected using those particle lifts with the sticky surfaces. Once I get those particle lifts in the lab, I will then examine them on a scanning electron microscope with an dispersive X-ray detector. So an SEM EDX.
Now, what's the second thing you said? The SEM, and what did you say after that?
Energy dispersive X-ray detector.
What is that?
Well, the scanning electron microscope's a super powerful microscope. You might be used to a light microscope, that you might have used in school, and that might magnify something around 400 times. The scanning electron microscope uses electrons instead. And so we can magnify things 30,000, 50,000 times. The energy dispersive X-ray detector allows us to analyze a sample for which elements are actually present in the sample. So the SEM component, the microscope component, allows us to see a sample and analyze the shape and the morphology of a given sample. But the EDX component allows us to see what elements are actually present in that individual sample.
Now, when I first started years ago, we were just looking for the 3 elements. How has that changed over the years in your specific field?
So currently, we are looking for characteristic particles of gunshot primer residue. It's a singular particle that contains all 3 elements of lead, barium, and antimony. It can't be a particle that contains 1 or 2 of those elements. It has to contain all 3.
And it froze. Let's get a different feed going here.
Clarified as what?
Before
or determine as what?
I'm sorry?
Before you'll determine as what? It's got to clarify, it's got to contain all 3 of them. Go ahead.
It has to be microscopic, it has to be molten, and it has to contain lead, barium, and antimony in order for me to report it as characteristic of gunshot primer residue.
And I know everybody knows except me, but what's molten?
Everybody knows except me.
Molten appears to be rounded in shape. It looks like it underwent high heat and pressure. Lots of times they're spherical, so like a ball, but sometimes they might look like a football. Just have to have like a rounded shape to the edges.
The feed cut off, but now it's back.
How does evidence
frustrating
get to you, forensic scientist Megan Fletcher? How does it actually come to you?
There's different circumstances, but typically evidence is submitted from a local agency or SLED, and it's submitted through the Evidence Control Department. The Evidence Control Department assigns it a unique lab number, and each item of evidence is assigned an item at that time. It then is brought up to the trace lab by either myself or another analyst or a technician, and then it goes through the process of inventory and then analysis.
How long have you been doing
trigger
this?
So many of you guys with that technical
Over
error.
15 years.
You love your job?
I do.
And how many analysis have you performed? In the field of, well, in trace evidence to start with.
Over 1,500 cases, samples, well over 3,000.
And have you been offered in courts of record of this state and other states perhaps as an expert in the field of trace evidence and gunshot primer residue? And have you been so accepted in courts of record of this state as an expert in trace evidence and gunshot primer residue?
Yes, sir, 49 times.
Your Honor, this time the state of South Carolina would offer forensic scientist Megan M. Fletcher as an expert in the field of trace evidence to include gunshot primer residue.
We have no objection to her making it 50 times, Your Honor.
And we thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, she is so qualified in the field of trace evidence and gunshot primer residue.
Why do you love your job?
I just find it really interesting. With trace evidence, I get to analyze different types of evidence. My daily job duties can change depending on what needs to be done that day.
Let's go over some, just, on a live person, human being,
Yes, sir.
blood flowing.
Yes, sir.
Is there a period of time after which SLED's guidelines say we won't try to determine if there's gunshot primer residue on somebody?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
Beyond 6 hours, we will not analyze a GSR kit from a living individual. And the reason that we will not analyze that is because in-house studies as well as peer-reviewed published studies have shown that gunshot residue so readily transfers and is so readily removed around 4 to 6 hours that beyond 6 hours it couldn't be tied back to an initial incident.
And what's the common sense answer why you won't do it after 6 hours?
So if you shoot a gun, as soon as you put that gun down, you essentially start to remove those gunshot primer residue particles. They aren't destroyed, but you're simply transferring them to other objects. You might be putting your hands in your pocket. You might touch a steering wheel. You might wash your hands, and that would remove most, if not all, of the particles. So beyond that 4 hours, you're really looking at the total removal of those particles.
So if you didn't wash your hands, just everyday living or touching, could, after over 4 hours, you wouldn't want to, or 6 hours, I think you said it is now.
6 hours is our policy, but an in-house study with controlled participants where we informed them that they weren't allowed to wash their hands and told them to basically stick to clerical work, we really saw that drop off around 4 hours.
Okay. If you did wash your hands, and you know somebody washed their hands, they told you, hey, I washed my hands, would you test it?
We would.
Okay. But would you expect most of them to be gone at that point from washing your hands?
It depends on how well you wash your hands.
Okay.
We expect most of it to be gone, but we've seen it to still be present even after somebody's washed their hands.
They must not have sung the whole Twinkle Twinkle
Little Star
song.
You can do a
while they
little
were
bit more
washing
for
their
me.
hands.
Gunshot primer residue, is there a certain, I mean, how do you determine, is there a certain distance, vicinity, shooting? I mean, what are you looking for in determining whether gunshot residue is present and whether someone was in the vicinity to get it?
So really what we're trying to determine when we're looking for gunshot primer residue is, one, were they in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm? Were they shooting a firearm? Or is it simply transfer? And in most cases, we can't determine whether it's vicinity, which includes shooting, or simply transfer.
Discharge, vicinity, which just mean, are you close to it?
Yeah, so vicinity can be 2 to 3 feet to either side of the shooter and outwards of about 60 feet in front of the shooter.
Discharge, vicinity, and transfer. What do you mean by transfer?
So you can get gunshot residue on your hands from an object that already has gunshot residue on it, or from a person who has gunshot residue on them. So if somebody else shoots a gun and you shake their hands, you could get gunshot residue on your hand that way. You could also touch a recently fired or a dirty weapon and get gunshot residue on your hands that way.
So if you had just fired a firearm and I came up and shook your hand, could I get it from that?
That is possible.
Okay. If I reached under to grab you to turn you, could I get it if you
Now
had
he's
been
infected.
shot with gunshot residue?
So gunshot residue does travel with the path of the bullet, so we do expect to find it on victims who have sustained gunshot wounds. And around that gunshot wound specifically, we do expect to find gunshot primer residue particles. So if you touched that area, there is the possibility of transfer.
Okay. And again, if you don't mind me touching you on the arm, if you had gunshot residue on your arm and I did that, could I get it?
That is a possibility as well.
And what's that
I see a lawsuit.
So in
Assault.
that case, that would be a secondary or tertiary transfer.
Transfer?
Yes.
From one item to me?
Yes, sir.
Some states
And
do,
the
some
other way
don't.
is if I fired a firearm.
Yes, sir.
And if I fired a firearm, where do you look for to see if somebody's fired a firearm based on what they're wearing? Like if I was wearing this right now and fired something here, and you had this jacket, where would you look for potential gunshot residue?
So if I knew that that was what you were wearing at the time of the shooting, we would sample from the right sleeve of that jacket, the right chest area of the jacket, the left sleeve of the jacket, and the left chest area of the jacket. We may also want to sample the tie because it's center on your chest, and then the right side of your pants and the left side of your pants. And then your shoes are also a possibility.
Why is that?
Because your shoes are also in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm. Sometimes we get results off of them, sometimes we don't.
Okay. And would you test my hands?
That would be the best evidence, is the hands, because the hands will allow us to link it to a specific incident within 6 hours, whereas clothing, we can't tell you when it got there. And that's because on an inanimate object such as clothing, that gunshot primer residue is going to stay until it's actively removed.
There you
so
go.
You would have to brush it off.
Defense
you would
is
have to
gonna
wash it
grab
off.
that.
You would have to do some activity to actually remove it from the clothing.
They're
And
all
that was
over
the next
that.
thing I was getting into. You beat me to it. So, but if I just shot and washed my hands off, potentially I could have washed it all. Gunshot primer residue off, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No, it'll be a
But on
a double
inanimate
dose.
objects, and you
Sure.
just said it, and I apologize, how long can gunshot residue stay on?
Indefinitely, if you don't touch it, if you're not actively moving it around or washing it, it can stay until it's removed.
Okay. Now let's just say I'm dead, okay?
Okay?
And I got shot just a few feet. You shot me from right here, okay?
Okay.
I fall down. Would you expect to have gunshot residue on me?
It depends on the firearm, but in general, yes.
And why is that?
So the gunshot primer residue comes out, a large majority of the gunshot primer residue comes out the muzzle of the firearm. And not only does it come out the muzzle of the firearm, but it also follows the path of the bullet. And so wherever that bullet's going, it's going to follow behind it.
I think this lawyer's going to pull out the gun and start aiming it and saying, so if I were to shoot.
Now, if you know, like me, I've been shot, do y'all test for gunshot, or will you test for gunshot residue on a deceased person who you know has been killed with a firearm?
SLED will not test on victims who have sustained gunshot wounds, and we have not been testing on those victims since January of 2022.
And prior to that, was it your policy not to do that, or recommend to local law enforcement agencies not to do that?
We didn't have an official policy, but we were recommending it due to the lack of probative information that you could gain from it.
And just say that one more time. What do you mean by the lack of probative information?
It's basically confirming that they were near a gunshot
residue can
and they got
only
shot.
put somebody in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, or
they
it
have a
could
gaping hole
say
from
that they transfer
a bullet.
gunshot residue on them. So it's just putting gunshot primer residue on them. A victim's already, of a gunshot wound, has already been established to be in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, so it doesn't add any additional information to the case.
He said he had been shot. I think he was talking hypothetically.
Now, there's still other items like
Or
stippling,
theoretically.
which you're not.
That's a good answer.
Do you know about stippling based in your field of expertise?
That's not in my field of expertise.
Now, let's get to this case. Forensic scientist Megan Fletcher, did you have an occasion to examine some items for a potential gunshot primer residue?
Yes, sir, I did.
I remember that.
I think we have these marked, so I can find them. Shirt and the pants.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that what we're about to hear from the prosecution is going to have any real value.
The order that you, chronological order of when you examined them.
Okay.
You follow me?
I do.
And I'm going to show you what Mark states, 418. And if you...
ASMR time, guys.
I have some with me.
Okay, and I think we also have some here. I thought we had a whole box here.
I think that they're on the floor.
She brought her own gloves. She probably got her own scissors, too.
And why are you using gloves?
I use gloves to protect myself and to protect the evidence. I don't want to put any of my DNA or anything that might be on myself onto the evidence, and I don't want anything that might be on the evidence on me.
And not just gloves. In your laboratory, and I thought I asked you to bring one, but do you wear a lab coat?
When we process clothing, we do wear lab coats, and that helps protect us from our regular clothes from transferring over any evidence onto, or not evidence, but any materials over onto the evidence.
And that's to protect the evidence, really, as much as you, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have a lab coat and gloves before you start looking at these items.
Well, this also has a DNA request on it. Usually the requests are also on the outside of the box.
So yes, you have your white coat and gloves on when you're in the lab looking at these.
Yes,
Okay.
but because it has a DNA request, we also have a mask on.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Okay, you have a mask in addition to that.
Can you imagine her showing
Please
up?
open 418 and tell the jury what it is.
Can you imagine her showing up today in her lab coat with a mask and everything like she just walked out of the lab, which is apparently what he wanted her to do? Oh, man. Yep. Plastic and paper inside that, I think. I think that's her own personal mouth device that she's speaking into. The other recorder prefers
This
typing.
is SLED Lab L21-09074, item 19. I recognize it with our yellow barcode sticker. And this is SLED Lab number L21-09074, item number 20, again with our yellow barcode sticker.
And what date did you examine these on?
This guy probably has
I didn't
GSR all
physically
over his
examine
hands.
these
'cause
items.
He grabs the blue
Jamie Hall
raincoat.
would have taken the particle lifts off of
With
these
bare
items,
hands.
so her initials and date would be on everything. But that, the date that she did that would have been June 8th.
Okay. And when did you actually look at them?
I looked at she did call me in while she was processing them, but I didn't physically take custody of these items.
And I understand that. Maybe I was jumping ahead in my mind. Did you have an occasion when Jamie Hall was processing, you say she called you in there?
She did.
Okay, why?
She smelled something rather unusual for our evidence. Our evidence is usually pretty musky smelling, and when she opened up item 19, which is the white t-shirt, she did smell a strong odor of laundry detergent, and I did confirm that with her.
So she smelled that, said, hey, come in here, I want you to see this, or whatever. Did you have...
Hey, come smell this for a minute.
I could smell the laundry detergent as well.
It smelled like laundry detergent.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the lawyer's getting on my nerves. I hate that they go and stand in that doorway where the witness has to turn around, the judge has to
She
turn
took
around.
a sample from there, a lift, if you will.
It's a pet
so you
peeve,
were
but
examining the lifts off the
wish that was
shirt,
off limits.
correct?
Correct.
And the pants.
Correct.
Did you also get to look at the pants that day on June 8th when Ms. Hall looked at them?
I don't remember if I was in there when she processed the shorts, but I have seen pictures of that she took of the shorts.
Okay, and can you describe the shirt and the shorts when you saw them? The pictures of them.
The shirt is a white t-shirt. There is some staining on the lower left-hand side, but relatively clean. The green cargo shorts are clean.
Okay. Now, what did you do, and while we're here, did you also receive the forensic scientist? Let's start with the shirt.
Okay.
He just called
Tell
her by
the
a
jury
title.
specifically now.
Forensic scientist. Let's start.
Tell them specifically.
Person, please respond.
What did you do when you examined the particle lifts in that shirt?
The particle lifts were analyzed on the scanning electron microscope, and how we do that in our lab and how most laboratories throughout the world actually do it is use a software program to help us out. And that's because the particles that we're looking at are so small. If you can imagine 2 football fields, we're actually looking for particles the size of a pea on those two football fields. So we use a software that does a little bit of an automated analysis, and that automated analysis uses brightness and contrast that's associated with known particles of gunshot primer residue. And it does that automated analysis overnight for us, and in the next day or over the weekend, whatever it is, we come in, and then it provides us a list of candidate features. It tells us what features that it thinks contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. As the analyst, I then look at those features, I relocate to them on the SEM. So I physically drive the SEM back to that, to the location that it saved. I look at the particle, make sure that it's molten in nature, and then I use the energy dispersive X-ray detector to scan the particle to determine whether lead, barium, and antimony are present.
Sounds like something off like
and
a
I
Star
think Ms.
Trek.
Hall described where she took the particle list from. Did you determine, were there any gunshot residue? What did you find on the shirt?
Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony.
And it
So
can
they
come
did
from?
find GSR.
It can come from being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or being transferred from an object that has gunshot primer residue on it. No time frame can be provided as to when these particles were deposited.
And as far as 418 in evidence, the shirt, can you tell where the particle lifts were? From the right sleeve, the right chest side?
Can I refer to my notes, please?
Please. I think His Honor will let you.
They did find GSR.
So for the white T-shirt, from the particle lift that was collected from the right sleeve, right chest area, 2 particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. And from the left sleeve, left chest area, the particle lift collected from there, 1 particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found.
That's got to be transfer.
Those particle lifts are combined into one result for a result of multiple particles.
What does that mean that you found 2 particle lifts? I mean, as far as the amount of particles you found, what does that mean in your field of expertise?
I think Alex
My opinion
allergic
is
to
that
gunshot residue
object,
particles.
this T-shirt, was either in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or came into contact with something that had gunshot primer residue on it. I can't tell you the likelihood which one is more likely to have happened.
And that's your opinion, correct?
That's my opinion.
Right. Now, also in 418, and again, these were the defendant's shirts, pants, and clothes and shoes that we're going to get to in a minute that you were examining, correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
3
That's
particles.
What the chain showed.
3 particles on the shirt.
That's what the submission showed, yes.
Submission slip, thank you. Now let's go to the pants.
That's not very much. That doesn't scream out gunshot.
Did you have an occasion to
multiple
examine the
gunshots to
particle
me.
lifts that Ms. Hall did?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and again, and we may not go through this every time, but can you tell the jury what you did again when you were examining the particle lifts, please?
So the particle lifts from the shorts were analyzed the same way as the particle lifts from the shirt, the same way that we analyze every particle lift that's submitted for gunshot primer residue or collected for gunshot primer residue. Goes through the automated process. I go in, I confirm or that there are particles present or that there aren't particles present.
Can you tell me, did you locate any particles and where they were on the shorts, please?
Yes, sir. On the right side, right groin area, there were 2 particles located and confirmed. And then on the left groin area, there was 1 particle located and confirmed.
So consistent, 2 on the right.
What are your findings as a result of finding these particle lists on the shorts that the submission slips said belonged to the defendant on states 418? What's your opinion?
Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were found. Again, my opinion is that they were this pair of shorts were either in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or came in contact with something that had gunshot primer residue on it. Again, I can't tell you which is more likely, and I can't tell you when those particles were deposited.
So they could have come from a transfer holding a gun and then putting it on your pants?
That's correct.
Could have come from being in the vicinity of the shot?
That's correct.
Yes, this is a white shirt and khaki shorts, I think.
Could they have come from discharging?
Well, the shorts themselves can't discharge, so on an inanimate object, we just say that they're in the vicinity to the discharge.
That's what I meant, yeah, in the vicinity. The vicinity of a discharge.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, they can't discharge, respectfully. Now, did you have an occasion to examine the lifts from Alex Murdaugh's hands that were lifted by Varnado, I believe?
Yes, sir, I did.
I think they can say he got it from opening his door in his house.
And you basically, after Jamie Hall says, hey, these are all done right.
His entire house is basically a stack of gunshot residue.
These are already in evidence.
That's not the GSR kit.
These aren't the GSR kits.
She's like, you brought up the wrong one.
Did you have an occasion to examine the GSR kit?
I did.
It was taken from Alex Murdaugh?
Yes, sir, I did.
And did you know, you've talked about that 4-hour, 6-hour period. Again, was that checked? And did you make sure that that was collected in the time period or you wouldn't have performed your examination?
That's correct. Not only is it checked by the person inventorying, in this case, Jamie Hall, before I will sign off on that inventory sheet, I also double check the GSR information form. That GSR information form that is included in the kit is also scanned, so we retain a record of it so that I can go back and double check that it was within the 6 hours.
Okay, so you did that.
I did.
All right. And what was your, did your examination conclude as far as the particle lift that was taken from the defendant, Alex Murdaugh?
So one particle lift was collected from his right hand and one from his left hand. One particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found. In general, particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic, molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. Gunshot primer residue can come from the discharging of a firearm, being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, or coming into contact with a surface that has gunshot primer residue on it.
And y'all are going to say that conclusion if it's got just a few particle lifts or a bunch of them, right?
I'm sorry.
Just a general conclusion, that's what you're going to find, that there were particle lifts and it can come from one of those three ways, right?
Yes, sir.
Discharge, vicinity.
For hands, we have one of those three ways. For clothing, we only have the vicinity and the transfer.
Right. So is that consistent? If I grabbed one of these firearms and handed it to an officer, would that be consistent with your findings? You can get it from a transfer of a firearm?
You could get one particle from transferring from a firearm, yes.
If you fired a firearm and washed your hands and then grabbed a firearm and handed it to a police officer, would that be consistent with that also?
Well, you still had that transfer from the firearm. It didn't really matter what you did prior to that. You still could have had that one particle on your hands from that transfer of the firearm.
Did you have an occasion to examine the shoes?
I did.
Particle list from the shoes?
Yes, sir.
Tripping over the HDMI cable.
States 419. You still got your gloves on?
No, but I can put another pair on.
Good, because the same pair would be contaminating it. You're right. This isn't very compelling. You're shorting crypto at the moment. Let me know how it goes, Ivan. I hope you win, even if everyone else is losing. That's how shorts work, right? No gloves. He's just going to dig in.
And what were you provided regarding these shoes?
We were provided that these were the shoes collected from Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And did you?
I bet this kid.
Were you able?
I seriously think this guy opens his kids' Christmas presents for them. It's like, oh, you're not doing it faster. Give it to me.
No particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were detected.
How many?
None.
None.
No, none.
You know, think about the lab. Did you really know about, do you know anything about the case that you're, I mean, at that point, you're examining something, you don't know anything about who's wearing what or what you're examining, do you? Or whose you're examining, other than the submission slips?
Objection here.
No, I know who it is based on the submission sheet,
Right.
which is important because it has to come from somebody who didn't sustain a gunshot wound.
Okay, and I got that. That was a bad
But-
question. But other than that, you don't know about the case or what evidence, potential evidence, right?
I just know that it was a priority request.
You don't know what shoes the potential suspect was wearing during the day, or how many shoes they were wearing, if they were even wearing shoes, do you?
No, sir.
So your results after finding no gunshot primer residue or what on your report? Will you read it like you reported it?
Yes, sir. No particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue detected. The absence of primer residue on the item is consistent with, but not limited to, the following scenarios: the item not being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, cleaning of the item, excessive blood or debris on the item, environmental factors including wind and rain, the ammunition discharged, lead-free, non-toxic, or some .22 caliber rimfire ammunition not producing particles characteristic of the conventional primer residue, or the firearm not producing primer residue on the item when discharged.
I believe
So
it's a
at this
hard
point,
candy that he's eating.
You've examined a shirt,
Yes, sir.
shorts,
Yes.
hands, hands?
Yes, sir.
Gunshot, and shoes.
Yes.
And the date you examined all those again was what?
The date that they were placed on the
The particle list that you examined, yes.
Yes, the date they were placed on the scanning electron microscope was June 8th, 2021.
June 8th.
Yes, sir.
And that's the same day that Jamie Hall smelled them, smelled the shirt.
Yes, sir.
Same day you smelled the shirt.
Yes, sir.
They're so used to things stinking that when it smells good.
Did
it's
you
like
receive any
laundry
other
fresh,
items
like,
in
"Hey,
this
get here.
investigation where
Smell
you
this."
were requested to determine whether or not there was any gunshot primer residue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I want to show you now what's, I believe, with everybody's help, states number 100, seatbelt. Thank you very much. And you said a priority was placed on this case, right?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. Do you sometimes, have you been present when Jamie Hall was doing the particle lifts, and have you actually assisted?
Yes, sir, especially if there is an abnormal item submitted for analysis.
All right, and abnormal's got a lot of definitions, but in your world, what does that abnormal mean?
So typical items that we receive are obviously gunshot residue kits, but clothing items like T-shirts or hooded sweatshirts or pants or shorts or shoes, so things that we can have a standard operating procedure for. Those things we can say that we're going to collect from the same areas every single time. Other items are not so typical and then require a little bit more analysis on them.
States 100, is that example of one of those?
Yes, a seatbelt would be an abnormal item.
Do you know when you examined this?
The seatbelt was examined on September 1st, 2021.
It's just chucking evidence around
And
the
it's brought to
courtroom.
your lab?
Correct.
To the director's lab, excuse me. And is this what you examined?
Yes, sir.
And did you actually assist Ms. Hall in attempting to get particle lifts off this?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, so you were both in the room?
Correct.
Gloves on?
Yes.
Jacket on?
Yes.
Mask on?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell these folks, can you help me tell them what this is and where you attempted to get particle lifts?
Yes. So
She needs a
this
desk.
is, I had to Google this because I'm not super familiar with a seatbelt assembly. This is considered the buckle. This is the part that everybody sees in their vehicle. This bottom portion is what is in between the center console and the seat and not exposed when a person is sitting in the vehicle.
So if I'm driving, is this going to be on my right side?
It should be on your right side, yes.
Okay. And what is this?
So if we start here, the next part that everybody's familiar with is the latch plate, which goes into the buckle. And then there's an entire belt that goes into the retractor wheel.
Can you
And
pull
it-
that? Let's pull it. Don't let it go.
I got it.
Where did y'all attempt, you and Ms. Hall attempt to get particle lifts?
So we stretched it out as far as it would go, and we took samples, 3 samples from the belt, front, or both sides, and we
Little
just
ASMR for you
divided
there.
it into 3 sections and took samples from those 3 sections.
And this was an abnormal item that you assisted Ms. Hall with?
Yes, sir.
Will you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the results of your examination, if any?
Yes, sir. 1 particle characteristic of gunshot primer residue was found. In general, particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue are microscopic molten particles that contain the elements lead, barium, and antimony. Gunshot primer residue can come from being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm or coming into contact with a surface that has gunshot primer residue on it. However, no information can be provided as to the time frame in which this particle was deposited.
So in common sense term, how could that get on the seatbelt? Where did you actually find the particle?
The particle was located on the particle lift collected from the buckle, so that piece with the red button.
Just in common sense, in your expert opinion, how could that particle get on that buckle?
It could be from touching something that has gunshot primer residue on it, or possibly being in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm.
So it could be a transfer?
It's probably most likely a transfer, yes, sir.
Okay. Say why is it probably most likely a transfer?
It's just usually not exposed to the vicinity. If there isn't a gunshot out of that vehicle, then transfer is the most likely scenario.
Just makes sense, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, you submitted another potential piece of evidence in this case, forensic scientist Megan Fletcher.
Yes, sir, I was.
And what was that?
This was a blue rain jacket, kind of poncho type jacket.
Do you know when I guess when that came into your custody, when you looked at it the first time?
October 5th, 2021.
Bed course is over.
I think we're firing up Elmo.
States 439.
Excuse me, Your Honor, we renew our earlier objection to this evidence under 403, but we don't have any additional objections.
Yes, sir, submitted.
They don't need to renew it. This is a running objection.
Or not yet, but just showing what's 430 right now. Is that what you examined?
Those are images of what I examined, yes.
Images of what you examined?
Yes, sir.
The blue poncho.
And
the raincoat.
Tell the folks where you conducted
with
this
sleeves.
examination, specifically.
I conducted this examination in the trace evidence laboratory.
I may need them. I'm sorry. In the trace laboratory.
Yes, sir.
And I first noticed there's a well, states 430. It appears that the well, let me put this on here. I'm sorry.
We're going to hear there was a ton of gunshot residue inside on this jacket. That's what we're going to hear. Her testimony that it would stay there forever if it was near a gun that was fired.
It's on a table or
the
something.
value of this, I think.
It's actually on two tables. It was large enough in order for us to be able to lay it out. We had to put two tables together.
Large enough you had to put two tables together?
Yes,
it's a
sir.
giant poncho.
And why is it on this white, what's it on, what's underneath?
Underneath it is butcher paper, and that's used to protect the item of evidence, but also used to collect any trace evidence that may need to be examined.
And it looks like on the right there may be a ruler or a measurement.
Yes, it was just a sticker with ruler on it just to help guide us with the general size of it. We didn't take any specific measurements of anything.
But is it fair to say that that's how it looked when you saw it in October?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, October 8th?
October 5th.
5th, excuse me, of 21. This report was dated October 8th. I apologize. You were with Ms. Hall. You had your jacket on, your gloves on, your mask on?
Yes, sir.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, did it take two of you to do this?
Yes, sir, it did.
Why?
So I gave Jamie Hall direct instructions on where to collect from, and while she was doing that, I was taking the notes.
Double teaming it?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to try not to get too close to you. I apologize, but 226.
This particular attorney practically put this poncho on earlier. Yeah, he's all over it.
Is that what's depicted?
She's going for the gloves, and he's like, no, I'm just going to grab it. She's like, quit touching me with it. quit hitting me with the evidence. Oh, my goodness. She's scrambling to get a glove on, so trying to scoot away from it as far as she can.
This jacket is the jacket I examined. My lab number, the item number 173, my initials, and the date in which we examined it is on there.
And is this the same picture of what we just showed, 430, I think?
It's the same image that you just, or this is the jacket that was in the image you just showed.
Okay, and I'm going to get this away. I don't want to bother any of the jurors, so I'll get this away here.
The jurors.
So you and Ms. Hall lay this out
You
to
beat the
examine
witness
it, correct?
with it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how did you determine specifically where you were going to check to see if there were any particles?
So typically when we're looking for gunshot primer residue, we're looking for somebody who was in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm. For this particular case, we were provided information that something might have been transferred in this item that had gunshot primer residue on it. Therefore, we treated it like an item that needed to be checked for transfer. Therefore, we had to collect particle lifts from the entirety of the item, including the interior.
You can either do it from up there or down here. How did you do it? How did you determine? What did you start with? Collecting potential particle lifts or particle lifts.
So in total, we collected 25 particle lifts from the jacket. When I say we covered everything, we covered everything. We collected from the exterior of the hood, the right sleeve, the left sleeve, the right chest, the left chest. There's a middle pocket on the jacket, so we collected the whole middle section, including the pocket. The pocket also has like a hand warmer section. It's got a little bit of fleece inside. We collected from inside of that. And then we split the bottom half in two, collected one particle lift from the right side and one from the left. We then flipped the jacket over and took one particle lift from the right sleeve into the right back on the top of the jacket, the left sleeve into the back on the top of the jacket. Let me check this real quick.
They swabbed the entire thing, all 6 acres of that poncho.
The back sample, the lower half was again split in half, and the right side was collected as well as the left side.
You said 25. Were there a total of 52 particle lifts?
There were a total of 25 particle lifts.
How many on the outside?
How many particle lifts?
Yes, specifically, please.
If Alec puts it on, you know it's not going to fit.
Link, 13.
Link in description, right?
And can you tell us now where they were?
Where
Particle lifts? Yes. Where did you swab specifically?
The outside of the hood.
Lifts, not swab. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
The outside of the hood, the front right sleeve, the front right chest, the front left sleeve, the front left chest, the middle pocket area, the interior of the pocket area, like a hand warmer section. The bottom half of the coat was split into two, so the bottom right side and the bottom left side. The coat was flipped over, and the sleeve and top half of the jacket on the right side was collected. The sleeve and top half of the jacket on the left side was collected, and then the bottom half, the right side was collected, and the left side was collected.
So you mentioned the pockets in here. Did you find anything inside these pockets? Warmers, or where you put your hands, if you will.
As far as particles of gunshot primer residue?
Yes.
No particles were detected inside that pocket there.
None.
None.
Okay. But you checked?
We did check.
Okay. And the particle lifts on the outside of the jacket were how many?
A total of particle lifts?
Yes.
13, I believe.
Okay. And what does that tell you, as in your opinion, as an expert in the field of gunshot
primer
residue?
Oh, are you asking the number of particles of gunshot primer residue or particle lifts?
Particle list, and then your findings.
Okay, there were 13 particle lifts collected from the exterior of the jacket, and I did find particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue on it.
Now, what does that mean?
That jacket could have been in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, or something that had gunshot residue on it could have transferred to that object. I can't tell you when that happened or how it happened.
And how many, again, inside the pocket you found no...
An answer that's not very definitive.
That's correct.
Why, you said it, you flipped it over and checked the inside?
Yes, we turned it inside out and also collected samples from the inside.
Had you done that before?
I don't believe I've done an interior unless it was explicitly stated that somebody was wearing a shirt or a coat inside out.
So you actually turned it inside out?
Correct.
And tell them what you and Ms. Hall did.
So once we turned it inside out, we collected particle lifts from the front and the back again. So the inside of the hood, the right sleeve to, you can see seam tape on this. It's that clear stuff that's kind of falling apart off of the jacket.
Yes, ma'am.
So we used that as kind of a guide for us. So we used the front right sleeve to the center section of the coat, the left front sleeve to the center section of the coat, the middle area directly behind the pocket, the right and the left side on the bottom half of the jacket. We turned it over again and did the right sleeve to the center point on the top of the jacket, the left sleeve to the center point on the top of the jacket, split the bottom in half again, did the right bottom half of the jacket and left bottom half of the jacket.
And what, after your examination, what were your results?
Particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue were also found on the interior of this jacket.
Is there a certain number, or could you have kept checking and checking? Was there a lot of gunshot primer residue inside of the jacket?
I would say there were a significant number of particles characteristic of gunshot primer residue on the inside of this jacket, yes.
How many did you determine?
I confirmed 38 particles characteristic.
And I'm saying determined, confirmed. You confirmed how many?
38.
38.
Yes, sir.
From the inside of the rain jacket, poncho?
Yes, sir.
Whatever this is, correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you, and you taught me a word too, is there something that kind of led you, there could have been more, but you just basically stopped checking?
So if we go back to when I talked about the automated analysis, it gives me a list of candidate features that may contain lead, barium, and antimony. There were significantly more particles were listed as candidate features containing the elements lead, barium, and antimony. I had to make an analyst decision based on my experience to stop at the number that I did.
Candidate features?
Yes, sir.
Which meant if you went on, you would expect to find more gunshot primer residue, correct?
It could. I would have had to still check the morphology. I would have had to make sure that they were molten around. I also would have had to check that they didn't contain exclusionary elements like high amounts of iron and magnesium. But there was a possibility that there would have been more on it.
But you found 38?
I confirmed 38, yes, sir.
And 23 candidate features if you'd gone further, correct?
More than 23.
More than 23?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did there come a point, if you had finished that examination, how long would it have taken you if you had checked everything?
If I had checked every single particle, it probably would have taken me a week.
So is there a percentage that you determine, hey, I'm going to stop at this point and say, here are my results? There's some other candidate features. Is there a guideline out there?
We don't have a specific guideline. It really is based on our experience. And for this particular case, I stopped anywhere between 10 and 20%. Some areas I was able to do a full 100% because there weren't that many to go look at. But other areas, I did have to make a determination.
Of when to stop?
Of when to stop, yes, sir.
Okay.
No tests on the tarp, I believe.
Can you look at the ladies and gentlemen of this jury and tell them in your opinion, your expert opinion, how that number of particles of gunshot residue primer What is that consistent with?
If somebody was wearing this coat inside out, I would say that it's consistent with being in the vicinity to the discharge of a shooting. Given that it's on the inside, in order for it to be consistent with transfer, an object or objects with a high amount of gunshot primer residue on it would have had to transfer to it. So they would have had to have more gunshot primer residue particles on them to begin with in order to transfer the amount of gunshot primer residue I found on this coat.
And as far as a recently fired firearm, would your findings be consistent with that item containing a recently fired firearm?
It is possible, yes.
With that number of particles?
With that number, it is possible.
Is there any other possibility?
So there it is.
Stated one. Are there any more?
If the jacket was inside out and simply in the vicinity to the discharge of a firearm, it could have also had that number of particles
A
on
recently fired firearm was inside that jacket, is what they basically said. That's what we got out of this.
In your opinion, and just life and the job you love, that's a large number of particles, isn't it?
it. It was a significant amount of particles, yes, sir.
On the inside of the jacket?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not doing this for this, but just to show, I'm almost 6 feet. I am 6 feet, a little over 6 feet on the record reflect. But anyway.
He's going to try it on. Here he goes.
Does this look like a full-length garment to you?
I would say that it would fit most people down to their knees or so.
Beg court's indulgence.
Yeah, the recent means that the firearm was recently fired before it was in there. There's no evidence that says how recently the firearm was in
Conclusion
there.
again, as far as the hood, you said there was one particle outside the hood?
Yes, sir. I was able to confirm one particle on the exterior of the hood.
And how many particles on the inside of the hood did you determine there were?
3 particles were confirmed on the inside.
Inside of the hood?
Yes, sir.
It sounds like there was probably a firearm inside this at one time.
And finally, since this is an inanimate object, how long would you expect that gunshot primer residue to stay on there?
Until it's actively removed.
Say that again, to us what?
Until it's actively removed.
That means washed, cleaned, whatever?
Yeah, brushing it, like aggressively brushing it off, washing it in a washing machine, cleaned, hosed off, something like that.
I wonder if Buster's sitting there is like, how did my dad's poncho get at my grandma's house? And why would there be gunshot residue inside it? Or if he's saying, why are they making a big deal out of my grandpa's poncho that he always wore inside out when he was shooting?
Was wrapped up inside that jacket, would that be consistent with your findings?
There is a possibility of that, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all we have. Thank you.
We're not going to get crossed tonight, pretty sure. That's going to be tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to adjourn for the day and resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Please do not discuss the case. Have a good evening.
No, I don't think he's guilty yet. I don't think the state's proved this. But there are some significant hurdles for him to overcome. He has asserted that he has an alibi, and that alibi doesn't match up with some of the evidence, the hard evidence that we have received. That's concerning. Because when you have an alibi, that's an active defense that you have to prove, basically. You have to prove that you have an alibi. It's not matching up. The times don't match up. What he's telling people don't match up with what he says his alibi is. So that's going to be fun. Let's wait and see if the judge wants to address anything with the either side, prosecution and defense, as soon as the jury's out of the room. But it's going to be some pretty heated debate. I think this
You will be cross-examined tomorrow. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone between now.
Brutalian's out the door. He's already left. He's halfway down the aisle.
We'll be in recess till tomorrow
He's like,
morning.
I'm out of here. Oh, man. I'm not sure where he's headed, but yeah, the cross is going to be fiery. I think it'll be heated. I think the back and forth is going to be fun. I think she's not going to get flustered. She is a professional. She likes what she does. I think she is. She's basing her analysis on her technical, scientific understanding of the process and what she tested. Her results, I think, those are fairly solid as far as documentation goes. The area she might get into danger is when they try to get her to speculate a little bit, because she has been certified as an expert. And they'll try to get her to testify and say a different scenario that could have had these same results. And they're going to do that to try to put some doubt in the mind of the jury. But so that'll be fun. Jay Hughes, thank you very much for being here. We will be here in the morning at 9 a.m. for sure. Let's see if we have any questions to answer before we wrap up tonight. It was a fun day, and it's just going to get better. This week is just going to peak. I think we're looking probably Wednesday or Thursday for my favorite, Tinsley. That is going to be amazing. Probably tomorrow we're going to hear the son of the housekeeper. I think that's about the schedule we're on. I think we're probably going to follow the same sort of pattern we saw in the 401 or 404B hearing as well. Broadway Garden says, it's like listening to a girl I went to high school talk about her business. At this point, I can't say he's guilty. There's not going to be that smoking gun for anyone. I think at some point everyone's going to have to just look at the circumstantial evidence and say, Occam's razor here is the most logical explanation, the right one. Is there reasonable doubt? Where do I stand? And just weigh the evidence. There we go. We were waiting for that, right? Every day I forget to turn that off. Someone needs to remind me as soon as the feed cuts off to shut off the audio. Possibilities are not conclusive. I don't think he's guilty with the entrance of all the guns they had in their house. The whole family were hunters. And the whole area, this is normal. You're in the South. Hunting's a way of life. This is normal here, especially out in the boonies and the sticks. Did the medical examiner testify? I have not heard that yet, Michelle. I haven't heard any medical examiner testifying. I don't know if they will. The cause of death is pretty clear. Wait, maybe they did. Might have been at the very beginning. I haven't heard any DNA testimony that I can think of. Let's see. Good night, Trail family. See you, Jenny says. Thanks for being here. Twisted Branches, you're going to have to send me pictures of what you make. You mentioned that you make some copper-wrapped branches. I've seen some videos online, some short videos and stuff of people making some incredible, like bonsai trees out of little copper strands. I'm wondering if you do a similar art. I'd love to see a picture of what you make on the burner phone or something. Broadway Garden says she talks way too much. Just answer the question in the least amount of words. That's the problem with experts. We rarely get an expert who is also not verbose. Tinsley acts arrogant. Yes, he does. I'll admit it. He is extremely arrogant, but it is so fun to see him go head to head with another arrogant attorney. And that's a lot of fun. Maybe while cleaning the kennels. My Blue Apron food arrived, and I'm so excited to cook. Born a Hawkeye, that sounds great. Hopefully you got some great recipes in there. Who is Tinsley? Tinsley is the lawyer that's representing the girl who was killed in the boating accident where Paul was driving. And he went after the financials of Alex Murdaugh with a vengeance. He went after him. He wanted everything. And basically the state is saying that his request for disclosure, the discovery that he wanted to prove that Alex Murdaugh was broke, basically, because he said, this is all I can do. I can scrap together $1 million maybe as a settlement. And he said, "Show me, open the books." He says that his request for that was what was the state says that's basically the trigger point where he's like, it's all going to blow wide open here in the next day or so from this request, and so that's what drove him to take these actions. So she found no GSR anywhere. Actually, she found GSR all over in the poncho. A tiny bit. I think she said on the right half of the shirt and the right half of the shorts, she found 2. On the left half of the shirt and the left half of the shorts, she found 2. Nothing on the shoes, but tons of it on the poncho on the inside. More on the inside than on the outside. What's the business? What's the business? No business today. We're all done with business. Let's see. Kimdra Saunders says, do you know if he's in custody during trial? Yes, he is. He's been in custody since that other case that he admitted guilt on, I think. Has anyone testified how awesome I am? Ivan, we hear it every day. Ivan is amazing. Appreciate you being here, Ivan. Thank you for all the humor and the seriousness and the perspective you bring to the channel. Love you, man. Thanks for being here. Good night, Pickle Peeps. Until tomorrow. Thank you, Creative B. Debbie, you're amazing. Thanks for being here. I still am working on getting my plaque hung up. It's still next to me. Debbie made this amazing plaque. I'll show it this way. That says Recovery Addict. Congratulations on reaching 5,000 subscribers. I'm going to get that hung on the wall, so it'll be in the courtroom behind me. If Twisted Branches lets me share pictures, I'm going to definitely share those if she makes some cool art. Lady Writer, as usual, thank you, Recovery Addict, mods, and addicts. Use guys are the best in the internet webs. Take care of one another. We're all related in one way or another. Thank you very much, Lady Writer. Appreciate that. Always on the go. Sorry, Recovery Addict had to step out to eat. Are we done for the day? I missed the end. You did. Where we left, the state has finished questioning the gunshot residue expert. And so tomorrow, first thing in the morning, they're opening up with the cross-examination, and defense hated this. They've objected to this evidence coming in all along. So this is going to be a pretty ardent defense, and it should be pretty fun. I think she's going to hold her own, and her ability to basically the way she answers in such a technical way and sticking to the facts, I think that will actually protect her from being badgered too much. Hopefully she doesn't speculate on too much that she's not an expert in, and she should be all right. March 13 says, Recovery Addict, as a lawyer, Alex would know how to conceal evidence. March 13, that's one of the things we heard this morning with Jeannie testifying from the office, the lady, the financial lady, his firm, that basically for him to keep all these balls in the air, he has to have just an incredible, she said, photographic memory or something similar, just to understand all the moving pieces and who knows what story and what he has to do to keep this balanced. So with that in mind, that makes it more possible for me to believe that he did something very carefully in the murder. If that's, that opens the door of possibility for me, especially for making sure evidence was a certain way and there were no mistakes made and things like that. It seems that that's more possible. Let's see. Norma says, look at me. I'm so fancy. I got a free super chat. You sure did, Norma. And you got a nice aqua-colored courthouse next to your name. Thank you so much for being a member here for month 2. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Let's see. That was good. Let's see. Goodman Law Firm. Great to see another attorney in the chat. Yes, we have a couple. We like to segregate them because they're the better than the rest of us, as far as they know so much. Appreciate the insights and stuff you bring. Both of you, Matthew and Goodman. Appreciate you. Let's see. Matthew, though, on the other hand, he's better than Goodman because he has a YouTube channel. Goodman, he's a YouTuber as well, and so we send people over to his channel, which I will recommend as well. At the end of the day, you want to pop over there and see what he's got. I think what was it, Thursday? You've got a new one dropping, a new video, Matthew, and we're super excited for that one as well. Let's see, anything else we need to address? Any questions? Too many questions still. Good job, Recovery Addict. See y'all tomorrow. Grumpy Cat, we'll try to answer the questions as we can. It's really tangled. This is probably one of the most confusing cases that I've ever covered. And it's bizarre. It's complicated. There are so many people and so many dates and so many times. And yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Tish says, Recovery Addict, she's been working a couple things for me as well. The Creative Bee is amazing. She is. She has a. I think she has a command. Is it B? I forget what the command is. Can somebody type the Creative Bee's command in chat? I think you can pop over to her Etsy store by typing in her command. She makes things like this. The quality is unbelievable. This looks like top of the line professional stuff. Don't you hate it when sentences don't end as they octopus? Yes, AJ. That happens to me all the time, only usually I'm halfway through the sentence and then I get, the whole squirrel moment and squirrel. I forget the last part of what I was saying. This really is the best chat. We have an amazing community here. It's so much fun to be with you guys. I'm related to Recovery Addict's sister's husband. Adam Nusky. I'm not sure if you are or not. sister's husband. You may be, or you may just be joking about the testimony this morning where we had my sister's husband's my brother's sister's husband thing that came out in the trial. Let's see. Until tomorrow, we'll see you, Marcy. Thank you. Let me just finish up the questions here, make sure we're all done. I'd hate to leave people hanging. We have lawyers and we have criminals. We try to divide the two, Ivan. We keep you guys separate, although you're sort of dependent on each other in a way. That's it's sort of you need each other. Dallas born bred. Thank you for being here. Have a great evening to you as well. Join on the Discord. Yes, if you want information, there's Creative Bee. Thank you so much, 6 Volt Bus, for doing this. Anytime you need Creative Bee's link, just go ahead. And she didn't ask me to do this. I just wanted to thank her. That chart, the plaque was just so amazing. You can check out her store on Etsy that way and check out what she does. And if you ever need something professionally or something like that, it would be awesome to support another fellow addict. That would be great. So Debbie does a great job there. Thank you, Debbie. Discord documents, all sorts of documents about the Murdaugh case are on the Discord files. They're worth digging into. If you need some help, join Discord and ask some questions over there. They have some great mods. I say we. I like to feel like I'm part of that, but they have some great mods over there that can help you get through the process and get onboarded and figure out how to really browse to your heart's content over there. So yes, Thursday, the video Ask a Lawyer, episode 17. Can you get fired for going to jury duty? Some people look for jury duty as a way to get out of work, and other people look for work as a way to get out of jury duty. It's funny how that perspective changes depending on how much you like your job. Goodman says, I'll check out the channel, but I'm still the best. Call me Nicole instead of Goodman. Nicole, I will do that, but I'll forget, and I do apologize. It sounds, and I think I remember you said you're married to the sheriff, or married to a sheriff. So that's cool. We'll probably tap you on the shoulder for a little perspective on both counts at different times. I almost dated R.A.'s sister in high school. Does that count? Eric, that's awesome. Yes, that counts. That counts, Eric. And he's telling the truth. So let me hide in the background today. No problem, Weather Watch. I think you're recovering from your vacation, and I understand how that goes. Thanks for keeping the weather pretty tame, so we didn't have to call on your expertise to change it. Best channel on YouTube, not even close. Thanks, Ivan. Yeah, Harputin was was Harpo, is what we're going to call him. Left the courtroom so fast. He was like, the judge was still talking. He was headed down the aisle. It was funny. If you need more legal content before we start again in the morning, find more videos over on the channel. Right there, you can click that link and get to Matthew Harris's channel. You can join us on Facebook. We have a fun community over there that's growing rapidly. It's easier to share things with each other on Facebook. Everything sort of has its own reason and a purpose, and Facebook's a fun thing to just talk about, just things crime-related and fun things that way. We have some great chats about just current events and other things going on there as well. No evidence puts a gun in his hand. And you're right, and I don't think we will see any. That's not going to happen. It's still going to be, there's going to be a big question mark at the end of did they do enough? Thank you. Have been keeping us gainfully employed. Good job, Nicole. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. Ivan just, I can't show this this comment that Ivan just said, but I read it and it made me chuckle. He will not be joining us on Facebook. So that's all. Okay, I think I've got some music. We do. All right. Was the reward money stolen as well? Kelly, depending on your perspective there was no reward money because it never would be paid out. I mean, if I knew that there was no way you could win a bet, I could put up billions of dollars as reward. Billions, because I knew there's no way to win. And so some people might look at it that way. The reward was never paid out because there was no one else to catch. There was no other shooter. At the same time, the defense is going to say, look, we tried. We think there's somebody out there. We're trying to put money behind it and say, hey, we need help to answer this and solve this. Ivan, you're awesome. Thank you. Kevin, thank you as well. See you tomorrow. We'll be starting 9 o'clock tomorrow. Let's see. Turn up the volume, guys. Here we go. Tonight when you go home, please hug the people you love. Smile at someone to make their day just a little bit better. And please stay safe till we go live again, which will be 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, barring some, police chase or something that happens tonight. You never know. Keep the subscribe button checked and the bell rung, and whenever we go live, you'll get notification probably within an hour or so. You know how YouTube is. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.